Okay, so calling the meeting to order. This is the Monday, September 25th meeting 2017 of the Charter Commission. And reviewing the agenda, we have 3 sets of minutes to approve. We'll have public comment. We'll be completing the edits for the final charter and charter report. At 7:15 or later, we will vote on the charter report, and submitting the charter and report to the select board. We'll have any other planning that's necessary. Final comments by members and public. And that's it.
Attempting to approve tonight's minutes. Tonight.
Yeah, I talked to Mike, we don't need to do that. It becomes sort of a
circular.
Right.
Yeah, it would never end. It's like, oh, and we approved the minutes, now we have to put that in the minutes, so.
So do we have to get our final version before we take a vote? Yeah, I guess.
Yeah,
So we can-
unless we-
So that might be put off in terms of time if we're not going to.
unless we permit, Scrivener's stuff like we did last time, but,
Okay.
but basically, we need to do the edits tonight, and,
So we need to figure out who's doing that, who's keeping track of that.
I think Mike is,
Mike
right?
will,
You'd like, okay.
would that be possible?
Yeah.
Little,
It makes me realize we've made the right decision by consultants.
Did you do that?
I was whispering to my buddy Nick.
Wasn't exactly a whisper.
I'm sorry.
we need a minute taker.
I'm not doing it.
I did the last minutes. I'll just say
So
that.
Tom, he did the last 2.
No way.
It's all you are.
I'll do one.
Thank you,
I'm
Meg.
gonna give it to you tonight, I'm just gonna turn it right around.
Yeah, it's great.
Stink it.
That works great. Thank you.
I'm doing it first.
Yes,
Am I the only one? Yes.
hopefully we'll be done it before a second shift, but,
But I'm not,
But
I'm
Jerry,
just tracking the discussion,
Oh, yeah.
I'm not tracking the
Hold on,
changes in the
Jerry.
document, right?
right, we'll track the change in the document, basically.
So tell me which you want me to start off with 9/24/17 V2AC?
No,
Yes,
is that it?
That's it.
yeah.
that's the
Is
most
that the
recent
most
one.
recent? Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I believe that's the most recent one.
Okay.
I think they renamed it for the website, but
Anyway, okay. So the way we're gonna do this, I sort of talked it through with Andy and with Mike.
minutes.
Oh, right. There are 3 sets of minutes that I emailed to you, and Diana's done her cleanup of them.
I have.
And they are from the 8th, the 15th, or the 7th, 14th, and the 18th. One of those,
7, 14, 18.
right? So,
I think.
I like any questions or comments on them? All in favor of approval?
I,
Great, thank you. So in terms of editing, I sent out,
So could you just, I'm sorry, which minutes were just approved, all of them?
The last 3 sets of
September
September
7th,
minutes.
14th, and 18th.
So all the September minutes.
just do it, there we go.
Just read 100.
7, 14, 18.
I think that's what they are.
Here's this.
So I'll have to go back and edit.
This is your email, right?
Yeah, this is the email that I sent last night of the sort of 6 substantive areas that Andy and I identified. But what we thought we would do is hold these
this'll make it easier.
and go through article by article on the non-substantive parts that are in the track changes, indicated in track changes that,
So you're gonna
in
do
the version that you
delay-
have.
Andy, you're gonna do these second and not first?
Yes, we're gonna do these second.
Okay.
So what we're gonna do is we're gonna go Article 1, and we're gonna say, does anybody have any changes other than these 6 areas? And if there are changes, we'll make them. If there aren't, we'll move on to Article 2, and so on.
So we're working from one of the emailed versions?
The one Andy emailed out last night.
V2.
No, not the one at 3 something today?
That was the report, that's not the charter.
9/24/17 V2AC.
Yes,
R2D2C3.
we've got a wonderful naming convention.
Yes, I totally get it, because some people don't
2417
do that.
V2AC, right.
The one at 9:39?
I
Yes.
sent it at 9:39 last night.
Okay, got it.
Okay? So,
All right, so number one.
Article 1.
Okay, I have no, I'm in Article 2, sorry.
So I have some changes to add to Article 1 beyond what's there.
Okay,
All right.
Are they Scrivener or?
They are all Scrivener, but because it's tonight, we need to go through them.
okay.
Yes, Irv. Agency, definition of agency in 1.7, at the end of it, it needs a period.
I assume within the quotation.
I don't really care which.
Yes,
But
inside.
put a period somewhere.
Town
Inside.
agency.
Yes.
Right, agency.
Where is the, wait a minute, say that again?
In the
Agency.
definition section, the definition for agency, where it says see town agency, it needs a period. The definition for public forum,
Period there.
Yeah.
we need to start the sentence with a capital, so the T, somewhere in there, we lost the capital for the,
Now, I'm doing these in track changes, correct? Or do you want me to just?
I think it's a good idea, and then just
And then we'll go
through it.
accept that at the
Yeah.
end.
and in special act, it's the phrase special act, not the word special act.
Yes.
Wait, say that again?
It should
The
be the
phrase
phrase
special
special act,
act,
not the
special
word. It
act.
must be one I missed or something. Those were my only changes,
Are we doing capitals or just for town?
just for town, I think.
So what did you change in special act? I'm sorry.
It started,
reads
the word
special act.
special act shall mean, and I changed it to the phrase special act shall mean.
It's two
Instead of
words.
Because it's two
word?
words, yeah.
Okay,
All right. Are we
yeah.
good?
Yeah, I just wanna make
So all the
sure I
other
know what
changes
you're
that were
doing,
marked?
that's all. Okay, so, all right, so, let me just make sure I know where we are. I'm wondering on the, town bulletin board, whether it say, should be and/or, because sometimes they'll be posted in more than one place.
So if we use and at all, that means it has to be posted all the time in all the places, which would require us to then go back to whenever we use it and see if that is actually what we want. For example, Paul Bachleman noticed that the rules and regulations of multiple member bodies need posted on the town bulletin board. And as he pointed out, we have 50 such multiple member bodies. If we require them to be posted physically,
What is that?
If it's a computer went off,
So the fact that it might be in other locations as well doesn't bother you?
no.
Okay, fine, I just, thought I'd ask.
All right, can we move on?
Yes?
Article 2. I have a couple of minor,
So do I.
or
I have some
quite minor.
minor too.
Let me give you these. In section 2.1B, it says on the second line, beginning Monday in the January succeeding the regular town election. Can we just say following the regular town election? Because we talk about successors below, and it just seems like
Sure.
easier to understand.
I think it's easier to understand.
We should make that same change when we get to Article 7.
Okay,
Or,
I didn't notice it anywhere else,
no,
but
it's in the other one. I'll add it.
Make a
to
note,
7.
okay.
Make a note.
And then in section 2.8B, it's talking about town, information request, town council may request or require a representative of a multiple member body to appear, blah, 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 in relation to the multiple municipal services, functions, and powers or duties which are within the scope of responsibility of that body. Is that body referring to town council or multiple member or the multiple member body?
let's just say the multiple member body.
If that's what it is, right?
I assume that's what we meant, that's what
Maybe square.
That's how I read it.
Of that multiple member body,
Wouldn't make much sense to,
right?
Of that multiple member body.
Yes.
That's fair.
And then,
What is it, Will?
what's that?
I got it.
You got it?
I'm trying to do two.
Yeah. And then in 2.8E, we say that the town council give reasonable notice of not less than 5 days. The representative of the multiple member body, town manager, superintendent, and library director, I think it should be or library director. That's E.
E. Okay, that's one I have.
We're good. And then, in terms of this 2.8D, the new paragraph in here, I thought last week we had talked about that we wanted them to be giving information but not being subject to investigation, and this language probably does that. I just wanted to get a sense of, it's the same language that we're using for the town manager, and is there anything as far as, we're basically requiring the superintendent or library director to provide specific information to it. We're requiring the superintendent or library director to appear before it at any time to provide specific information on the conduct of any aspect of the business of their respective town agencies, and they may bring people with them. Is that consistent with what we were thinking?
One question before that is that when you say superintendent and library director and D above, how do we know what superintendent that is? We don't say, it's not in the definitions.
So
It's
school
just-
superintendent?
Yeah, I think we need to define who we're talking about. Like, maybe what's the official title? The Amherst Regional, I mean, somewhere.
I think we could just say school.
Or we could
schools
put it in the
superintendent.
definitions, but superintendent could be,
Superintendent of schools or library director.
Right, we only have one superintendent at school.
it doesn't say superintendent of schools.
I'm saying with Andy's
So that would be-
suggestion.
If we edited it, that,
It would have to be put in D too,
right,
and probably should be put in E too.
Superintendent of schools?
yeah.
Do you want to spell out for me, reasonable notice for an appearance or something that explains what the notice is? Or do you think it's clear enough in the context?
It said the notice, the next sentence says the notice shall include specific questions on which
Yes,
the town council seeks
Right.
information.
But
So
I wondered if you wanted it in the sentence first, in the first sentence. I'm just mentioning.
I'm okay with it, but,
Okay.
I think it's fine.
so, I'm not overly concerned with this, but I just wanted to raise it in case anybody else was.
Yeah.
I feel like this is appropriate for the town council to require them to come before them. It says on any aspect of the business of their respective town agencies.
it's very
We could-
appropriate.
Yeah.
Well, we could add "and within the jurisdiction of town council."
Well, we asked that on the, we say that on the first sentence. They can require them to give information on any matter within the jurisdiction of the town council. And the second one, we're requiring them to appear before it to give information on the conduct of any aspect of the business of the respective agencies that is within the jurisdiction of the town council.
What, have we defined jurisdiction of the town council in the first place? Our jurisdiction is the town,
Yeah.
the town council.
It's gonna be hard to find something that's not, unless they, if they wanted to call them in on, creating the math curriculum, they couldn't do that.
No, what I'm saying, what
But if it's the budget,
Right.
then they could.
Budget, yes.
I'd be okay with adding the "and within" or that is within the jurisdiction of the town council.
That would, I think, make it cleaner. It would
It's
maintain.
like a belt and two suspenders.
Yeah.
Okay.
Are you against it? Nope.
I mean, it's self-evident, because they can't bring something before, right?
But they could, if there's a big stink about, integrated math, somebody could decide, we're gonna call you
It really should
in.
have been.
Yeah,
Just
okay,
saying,
bad example.
But you don't want the town council to be
Right.
calling them in when.
It could be chaotic.
Yeah.
Yeah, unless everyone's leaving the schools to go to Chinese Journey.
So where do you want?
So at the end of the second sentence, put in, any aspect of the business of the respective town agencies that is within the jurisdiction of the town council. Yes.
So mine, bear with me. 2.1A, the very last phrase, under.
Are we going backwards?
Yes.
Mhm.
Under, it
Pause
says,
there a second. 2.1, okay. go.
it says under section 10.7E, although it's actually also under section 7.4, which is where we actually say the town's divided into 5 districts. So I want to have it read under sections, plural, 7.4 and 10.7E, since 10.7E is just how those districts are made currently.
Under sections
7.4 and.
Okay.
That's what I said.
2.2B, the fourth line down, all committee, it says, it starts members of and oversee all committees of the town council, whether special or standing. I think it should read, it would be more logical to read whether standing or ad hoc, because that is how we refer to them in section 2.6E.
That's fine.
Do you wanna flip the order or?
So standing or ad hoc instead of standing or special, that's how we refer to it in 2.6.
Want to say standing first though?
Yeah, standing is first, standing or ad hoc.
Are we calling them committees and not subcommittees?
That's what they're called in 2.6E. Town council shall determine its own standing or ad hoc committees. They can name them whatever they
You're
want.
foreshadowing a question of mine about the finance subcommittee.
2.8A, in the added language, the agency, the A in agencies needs uncapitalized.
I'm
There's
assuming
another
other
one of
people
those.
are keeping.
Yeah, there are.
track.
I'll-
Just reading.
Yep.
I'll do it. The last sentence, this is totally Scrivener here.
Where are we?
In 2.8A again, we sometimes, when we say section 2.8A, B, C or whatever, sometimes we have a space between the number and the parentheses and the letter, and sometimes we don't. So I'm gonna say the ones that we get rid of the space to go without a space. So that is one of them. So you could delete the space between 8 and the B.
On mine, that doesn't, I mean, it's still,
It's still showing something probably because of,
yeah,
yeah, but
just wanna set, yeah.
I don't know whether it was there or not.
And between
D, there's commas there, so I'm not sure we should there. Cause we've got all the commas. So 2.8D has a capital A in agencies, the fourth line down, that will need uncapitalized.
I don't have a 2.8D.
It's inserted.
It was inserted.
Maybe look at it the right.
You should.
You got
In
B2?
the fourth, fifth line.
Superintendent, library director, right?
Yes, it should read superintendent of schools and library director now.
Okay,
The or was already done.
so you have to say that in the,
In the heading too.
and also in the next line.
Yes. I think we added of schools, it should have been added 3 times, 2 times
Yes,
in D
3
and 1
times,
time in
exactly.
I missed the second in D. Okay, Superintendent of schools.
So in E, the fourth line that begins the town council under this section, I'd rather it read the town council under section 2.8, so it's not just E that people might think it refers to.
Okay. Yes, that makes sense.
Under section 2.8.
2.9, the title refers to appointments only, but we also talk about suspension or removal. So I would add and suspension or removal to the title.
Is that,
What- how
that's,
would you like
that
to
is in point
insert that?
2.9? I'm looking.
Just make it 3 plural
Do
nouns.
you want to do appointments to the town
Appointments.
council?
Comma, suspensions,
Comma.
or removals of the town council.
That's fine.
Appointments?
Of,
Appointments,
I go with
suspension.
by, because it makes it sound like
Is it
you're
by?
removing the council.
Yeah, by the
Oh,
town
you're right.
council.
Appointments,
Right.
suspensions,
Okay, I see.
and or
Yeah.
Or removals by the town council.
by.
Yep.
Appointments, suspensions, or removals by the town council. Okay.
Some commas were missing in the first line of that, as set forth in section 3.1, comma, and the very first line of section 2.9.
Okay.
Section 3.1, comma, and interim town manager, comma. In E of 2.9, after the items that we added, the meeting or executive sessions provided by general law, I would change that to a period and then capital the M for members to start a new sentence. It just makes it clearer.
I don't see that one. Say it again, Mandy.
2.9E,
Oh, E, okay, sorry.
Just turning it into two full sentences
Yep, I got
instead
it.
of the
I got it. Now
semicolon.
that I'm in the right section, I got it.
2.10A,
Okay, I had trouble with this because this whole section, 2.10,
Mm-hmm,
because you jump back and forth from bylaws to measures. And it seems like where you substituted measures, it makes the rest of 2.10 a little bit confusing because the rest of the time we refer to bylaws.
so there's one time we refer to measures now. There's two words for measure, but the first one is proposed measures shall be introduced in writing in the form necessary for a final adoption. Everything else refers to bylaws except when we say except an emergency measure, because down in B, that's how we refer to the emergency things. The emergency measures in B, so it should correspond with B.
Couldn't we say in A, bylaws and measures?
Yes, something
And other
like
measures
that,
shall
or
be introduced in
including
writing.
measures, because it looks like we've switched tracks to people who aren't as familiar.
I would be fine with bylaws and other measures. I do, since bylaws are not the only, it's kind of redundant since
It
measures
is.
include bylaws, but I'd be fine with that. I just think
Yeah.
all measures should be introduced in a form necessary for final adoption.
Well, maybe say that too.
Well, that's why bylaws and other
Other
measures is fine.
So
Yeah.
bylaws and other measures shall be introduced in writing.
Okay.
210A.
Proposed, so in 210A, bylaws and other measures, proposed bylaws and, so we're undeleting bylaws and adding and.
Yes.
Sure.
Adding and other.
And other measures. Oh, right,
And
yeah,
other measures.
because that's already in there.
Yeah.
So maybe, well,
The end of the second paragraph of 210A, just delete the space between section 2.10 and B. There aren't too many of them. And in C, 210C, the third line, the start of the sentence, if when the matter is next taken up, there should be a comma after if. It's the third line down.
Got it. I'm not, I haven't downloaded the version where I can get it, but I'm just, never mind. Got it.
That's what I had for section 2.
Anybody else have any, we will be going back to 2.11, because that's comment number 1 in our long, in our key substantive list, but anything else for that section? All right, Article 3.
Yay.
I do have one change that I suggested that I know when I not suggest.
I had a comment. Do you want me to?
You can go first.
It doesn't.
I don't want to monopolize.
No.
Go ahead, Diana.
You're in
It might be the same
I
as mine.
have
I
one
thought
too.
you were looking, so.
So you said you have a comment you don't want to make.
Right, let's see what Diana says.
Well, I just wondered if contracts should be part of that list, that's all.
Which, where?
That's what I have there, just M, maybe it's M. Yeah. It's M. You got a list of all kinds of things, and I was gonna suggest contracts be added to that.
Well, O has be responsible for the negotiation and enforcement of all contracts and
Yes,
collective bargaining agreements.
It goes back to, is
You're talking about administering?
administer the same as enforce? Which is
Probably.
sort of the same thing I was gonna bring back up. I think, yeah, I think contracts can be added. Administer personnel policies, practices, contracts, or rules and regulations.
No objection.
Nope.
Fine.
administer personnel policies, practices, contracts, or rules and regulations.
In M, that's where I had suggested deleting the and administer all collective bargaining agreements entered into by the town. I want to not delete that. I had thought it was redundant. It might still be redundant, but in case it's not redundant with
So-
negotiation and enforcement, we might as well just leave it in.
Okay. so-
Which phrase is that?
The
The
and
lined out.
the lined out one in M and administer all collective bargaining agreements entered into
So
by the
you can
town.
just reject,
So you reject that
and
edit.
then it goes back in.
Yeah.
Okey dokey.
I have one, or do you have one?
I've got other errors that need corrected, but you can go.
Section 3.4,
Yeah, me too.
powers of suspension and removal, there's the highlighted one. This is my comment. Do we need this? we're talking about the town manager will have the authority to discipline, suspend, or remove department heads, employees, and officers appointed by the town manager following the opportunity for a hearing.
Right.
I'm not sure what a hearing is, and I'm not sure we need to specify that. I assume if they want to, if the town manager wants to fire or discipline somebody, they would be likely to tell them why and have it, and probably have a discussion of it. I don't know.
So,
I flagged that also, but my response to it was, they have the right to appeal, and somehow it should be noted, and so I assume this hearing thing was for them to say, no, wait a minute.
Well, I think we've covered it in terms of as may otherwise be provided by law, collective bargaining agreements, employment agreements, this charter, or personnel rules. So if there are any of those rules, they can exercise them. But I just don't know what a hearing is. I mean,
Well,
to me,
maybe-
a hearing sounds like we're gonna have a public hearing on this.
No, it doesn't have to be public, but I think they have a right to state why they feel what happened is inappropriate.
So then I just want to make it clearer what it means.
Yeah, and
I think, I agree the word hearing isn't necessarily the right word, but appeal seems like a very obvious word with obvious meaning.
Right.
Well, appealing to who?
That's what I said, to whom you would appeal, I don't know, but,
Are you,
people should
Do you have
have
a
some
suggestion,
redress.
Mike?
I'm looking for another, let's see if there's a clear example here somewhere we can borrow. Something that's been vetted already.
just stop it there following, if you just stop it at, knock out following the opportunity for hearing,
Well-
and then continue with except
That's what I
as may
thought.
otherwise be
Yeah.
provided, then it, and personnel, because that's, if it's going to be a hearing or anything else, it's going to be included in the personnel policies and procedures.
That's what I thought.
Yes.
I thought we could do without it because I think it's probably
Yes.
covered in there.
I don't know, I mean, in our town as it currently exists, if somebody has a problem, they go to the personnel board. Now, whether that's spelled out in,
Wouldn't that be in the personnel rules?
Yeah, personnel rules,
they have certainly very elaborate personnel rules, but what I don't know is what is in the Amherst Town Government Act. I mean, maybe you don't need it.
That,
But we're talking about the right to discipline. It seems like there ought to be a right, corresponding right on the work, on behalf of the worker.
I agree.
Right, that's what the except as otherwise be provided by law, collective bargaining agreements, employment agreements, this
right,
charter, or
and it's
personnel
all going
rules.
to be in there, Diana.
Well, we'll give them that right. That's where the rules
It's going to be
happen.
there, in terms of a hearing, if there's has to be a hearing, it's going to be in the personnel.
I guess the concern is what if it isn't?
Yes,
And
we
do
don't
we
know.
want the charter to require that hearing in case the personnel rules
Or appeal.
Yeah.
don't?
And who drafts
Can we
the
find that out right
personnel
now?
rules? You know, they might decide it isn't worth
Town
it.
Government Act does not,
doesn't
appears
apply.
to only have a hearing to the town manager.
Yeah.
I would be in favor of leaving it out on the general principle of best practices in hiring being not so much a charter issue as part and parcel of what we're asking the town manager and town council to do under the structure of the
Plus, no, yeah,
charter.
if it's really bad, then certainly the collective bargaining will take care of it if it's not there, but I'm assuming that it's there.
It just wouldn't it be good to know? But
And
I don't
collective
see-
bargaining refers to people who have contracts, where
Yeah.
the guys
Well, there's
who don't.
employment agreements, so that would be contract or the letter that you sign when you get hired or whatever.
is there any way to find out, like, something like that, like,
Not during select board meeting, probably.
People have doubts, then leave it in, but it seems to me to be redundant.
Who would the hearing be before?
you know, well, that's why appeal.
Probably the town manager who's the one disciplining, but it does leave it open.
Well, here, an appeal could be in writing too, it doesn't have to be a presentation. I'll go either way at this point.
Well, I would put in following the opportunity for an appeal, but that's me. I'm trying to protect the workers.
Would appeal be better than hearing?
I don't know who they're appealing to.
That's the open provision.
Town
Town legal
council?
Well, we don't know who's attending the hearing either.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, again, I don't think that this is
It's not in other
charter
charters?
level detail.
Yeah, I
The
agree with
provision,
Tom.
the whole provision itself is not really.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, you've got the whole paragraph in there, and the one side, maybe just take that out. I
Want
don't
me to
know.
write to Paul right now, see if he's,
No, he's in a meeting.
no, we never know, it might be, okay.
Yeah,
Mike says it's not in other charters, so.
One, but
I don't know. That one sentence I would just take out.
A little clause.
Phrase.
Phrase,
I
whatever.
think I think that the,
Can you imagine the town manager disciplining somebody without giving that person an opportunity to state his case?
A good manager would never do that.
Of course, a good man never would, but people
It
sometimes
seems to me if people are really
grievances.
concerned about that, just leave it in
All right.
following the
I don't
opportunity for a
care.
hearing.
I don't.
It doesn't make any difference to me
I need
because
my
it's
money,
it's
too.
going to be in there. I'm 100% sure it's in personnel policies and procedures. But if you guys feel that we
But
need
you
to put it
do-
in there, go ahead and put it, leave it
I
in.
just, I
I'm
don't know what it
okay with
means, that's
taking
all.
it out.
All right, I can go with that because of the next part of the third line where it says employment agreements, and just hope that
Or personnel rules, I mean,
yeah, I hope those will be
I
sufficient.
mean, surely the collective bargaining agreements will cover this, so we're
Yeah,
really just
but
talking
not-
about the,
Yeah, I don't know that every
Um,
employee is covered under,
oh yeah, no, there's definitely some that won't be, but,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the majorities will no matter what be covered, it's just
all
a
right,
question.
anyway, I made my point.
Okay,
We
so
agree
should we delete it?
deleting that phrase.
Sure, go
Delete
ahead.
following the opportunity for a hearing, comma.
That's all I got.
Okay, so I apologize for going backwards again. Section 3.2, third line from the bottom of the intro paragraph, we refer to municipal departments. Do we want that to say town departments?
Municipal is generic.
I mean, not really, it means city, right?
Oh, we've mostly replaced municipal with town throughout the charter,
All right,
so-
fine, then change
It
it.
doesn't-
But
I
I
just
was under the
posed the
impression
question.
municipal could be either.
I'm fine.
In O,
So wait, with a yes, change to town, capital T
Yes.
town?
capital
No
T
objection.
town.
Yep.
In O, second line, after the phrase including labor unions, there needs to be a comma.
Oh, yeah.
In S, it's the only place we refer to town staff, so I would change the word staff to employees.
Do we use that elsewhere?
We do use that elsewhere. In U, I find it confusing, sort of, to have it not set out, so I would just add a little 1, a little 2, and a little 3 before the budget, the master plan, and school matters. Just to sort of
That's
split them
fine.
out.
1, the budget, that's right, Article 5.
2, the master plan, and 3,
3,
school
school
matters,
matters.
and then delete the space between 4.2 and E.
Got the deletion, so.
And in W,
Do you want it, let me just, do you want it,
The little eyes.
Little eyes.
little eyes.
In parentheses.
In parentheses.
You got it.
And in W, I would split those clauses into 2 sentences, so after exercise, put a period, and then start with a capital A with all, for all acts.
Is that okay when we have a,
It was done in other
yeah,
things, I looked.
yeah,
To make sure, and since it was done in other things, I think it just makes sense too.
yeah.
Say it again.
So-
I'm looking at it, but I don't.
It's just splitting the clauses to 2 sentences instead of,
Oh, that?
yeah.
Okay, I was looking at
Oh, no, not the end one.
exercise.
And in most of the other places, we actually, when we're delegating sort of limited to the following or whatever, we put an and before the last one, so we could put an and at the end of W since X is the last one.
That's fine.
Section 3.3. This is the highlighted section.
This will be talking about,
Do you want me to do that one now? I'll skip that one then.
skip that one.
Do you want me to skip the Lauren one and C?
What's that?
The appointments, appoint individuals.
No, I'll
Okay,
do that.
so Lauren, one of the many things Lauren recommended was in 3.3C, the second paragraph of that one. It's the one that starts in making appointments. She would reword that to, in making appointments, the town manager shall seek to appoint individuals, I would then add delete the for appointment. Shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise, and then delete the next clause and instead add representative of the community, including, and delete such categories and add with respect to. Delete such categories as, and instead say with respect to. So that it reads, in making appointments, the town manager shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise, representative of the community, including with respect to neighborhood of residence, blah, blah, blah.
Can we get rid of with respect
You
to?
don't need the word including, just say with respect to. Get rid of it.
Representative of the community.
What's relevant expertise representative of the community?
Yeah, right.
That's what Lauren, is that what Lauren said though?
Yeah.
Yeah, representative of the community. I mean,
Well, and
that's,
representative of the community.
Relevant, yes, two
Yeah,
different things
and-
as well, and represent.
and representative of
Oh,
the community. I mean,
I
that's
think
what
we
it
were gonna
is.
talk about it.
No, we
It
were
doesn't
talking
mean
about
anything.
It's not
six.
meaningful, it's just
Alright,
words,
right.
editing the words.
It's ridiculous to have that representative of the community. I mean,
Do you mean reflecting all viewpoints in town?
No, no, this isn't about viewpoints, this is about categories of people.
This is the diversity, she's
Age.
rephrasing the
Be good to add
beginning of the
opinions.
Is
phrase
this
about
Lauren?
diversity. This
Yes.
is Lauren.
representative of the community with the,
Well, I don't mind that, I don't,
So we could say, and representative of the community with respect to
Sure.
neighborhood of residence.
it's good to say it.
Right.
It's just words, but it's meaningless.
Well,
It is, because if you say representative of the community, that means, well, you got 20% African American, and then every committee should be 20% African American. That's representative.
Well,
So it's ridiculous. But
well, maybe there's a better word than representative, but the idea is a good one.
the idea is a great idea, but,
Reflective?
Didn't we have
That
another
works
phrase
for
we
me.
were gonna,
That's in 6-2.
well, wouldn't it be relevant here as well? We could just talk about it now. Or do we want to say-
yeah,
Is that a safe?
if that sheds light on it.
Actively encourage diverse applicants.
That's
6-2.
not quite right.
Or how about just seeking diversity?
I thought reflective of the neighborhoods would work for me, but I don't know.
I mean, I think her point is that you want, that the town manager will appoint individuals with relevant expertise
Right.
and who are, shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise and who are representative of the community.
I'm not objecting to it. I think that it really sounds great. It's just in practice, it's meaningless.
Well, why,
It just sounds good. but
why
it sounds
include
really
something
good.
that's meaningless?
Well, because it sounds good.
Aspiration.
Well, what is wrong with the word Nick suggested, reflective of?
Reflected is fine with me,
Me too.
instead of representative.
Is that all right with?
I think she just wants relevant expertise and reflected as opposed to having it be a separate category that also has to be considered separately, so. So with relevant expertise and who are,
Reflective of the community with respect to
Yeah.
neighborhood of
That works for me,
residence
Mandy.
and everything else.
do you
stays
have
the
that,
same.
Mike?
Yes, let me read it back to make sure. Do you want to delete such categories as?
Yes.
In making appointments, the town manager shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise and who are reflective of the community with respect to neighborhood of residence, etc.
No.
Yeah.
All right,
D.
We're looking at all our comments on 6.2.
Are we up to 60?
Well, it's the same clause. It's the
Yeah.
search for diversity.
Yeah.
In fact, I lost track of the one we were just in, because I went up to 6.2 to look at that.
well, 6.2, we were gonna talk about,
6-2, we're gonna talk about
we're gonna talk
separately.
about separately.
Are we up
Do you
to?
think it's the same?
We're in 3.3 and now we're going to 3.4.
I think there's other
I think they
concerns
ought
with
to-
6-2.
They ought to match.
Good point.
Well, let's talk about it first, when we get to 6-2. There's other concerns.
Well, can we just make a note that we're not gonna forget?
No,
It's on this list.
It's one of our big six here. that we're
Not,
gonna-
it's not, I'm not concerned about missing 6, I'm concerned about changing 6.2 and then forgetting to go back to the one
Ah,
that we just changed.
so if we change 6.2, we should be looking at this one again.
That's what I'm saying.
Okay,
All right, where
So
are we
where are we
now?
now?
Good
we're in
point.
3.
That's
3
my
what?
point.
Okay,
We're working our way through it.
What's the one we just finished?
D, the second line section, add the 3.3 before C.
Z,
D,
D, good.
D, just add the 3.3. Under temporary town manager, the third line is during a temporary absence or physical disability is what it reads right now. I was wondering if we should just delete physical, so it should be temporary absence or disability.
Yeah, because there could
Was
be
there a
some other
reason-
Could be
disabilities.
some other disability.
Yeah,
There are some others that might even be more likely than physical.
yeah,
Even. Good point.
so just delete physical.
What was that?
3.7, 3.7,
You okay?
Ah,
3.7.
Those are good
Third
catch,
line.
Randy. That was a good one.
3.8. Gosh, the second paragraph that starts if a public meeting has not been requested, at the end of the phrase that got added, preliminary resolution to the town manager, add a comma. That's all I got for 3, other than the one we're coming back to.
4.
Anybody else? On to 4. I have nothing for 4.
I do. Shocking. It's the 4.1B, all those spaces need to go.
oh, what?
There's
Spaces
4 of
go.
them,
Spaces after the
after the
section
4.1s. And in 4.2, 3, and 4, and 5, the word succeeding needs to be changed to following to match what Andy just did in section 2.
Oh, no.
That's why I have all those changes, Andy.
So it's in A of.
It's in A of
Each of
4.2
these.
on the third line.
Yeah.
It's in 4.3A, the third line.
Wow.
Didn't know I was doing that.
So that one's you. It's in A of 4.4, but that's the fourth line.
Good grief.
And the second line of 4.5. I have 2 more changes in 4. The first one looks like, since it's in blue, it must have been from Lauren.
Where is it?
4.4A. She
4.4.
did not like the phrase, the as provided by the general laws after the one member elected by the housing authority tenants. Because she said the general laws right now provide for some sort of town-wide balloting of that person
How you
or
gonna have the
something.
housing
We were
authority tenants
confused.
elect
But
somebody
we have
townwide?
already elected, I don't.
So, well, this was the provided by general laws, the
Oh.
choice of the, how, someone chosen by the, so we, Andy and I decided, we think the proper thing to do would be just to get rid of the phrase as provided by the general laws
Fine.
and leave it up to the next government
The
to
housing
figure out how to do
authority,
it.
Yeah, that's fine.
And then at the end of the Oliver Smith Will elector section,
Mhm.
I would add the sentence, the elector shall make an annual report to the town council, as with every other elected office that we've required him to do.
Yeah, he
That should
really-
be interesting.
Yes.
He apparently does, I found one from 2008.
Well, they get
So-
paid, right?
I,
You sent the end of 4.5?
yeah, the last sentence of the, end of 4.5, the elector shall make
Forever.
an annual report to the town council.
I don't think so.
He did a report, at least back in '08, I found one, and it essentially just recounted who in Amherst received payouts from the will.
It's
Yeah.
actually good.
I
Yeah.
Yeah.
remember, but so what? I think it's a good thing.
I think it's a good thing, so we're adding it. He's gotta do it now.
I'm with you.
Or she, if John ever decides not to run.
Right.
One
We're
other
gonna
thing
have
they
a
can
contest.
campaign on now. I read a great.
A great
My
report.
report was awesome.
Maybe we'll have a competitive
My
race.
report,
with
Oliver Smith is still dead.
Didn't release them though. Article 5, I have one.
Oh, what's your
So
one?
just to break up here.
Go right
Here's
ahead.
here. And this is a global, if it changes, it probably has implications elsewhere.
Great.
But we talked about forming committees. We talked and we talk about the finance subcommittee, we've always talked about it being a subcommittee, but I think it should be a finance committee of the council. I don't know which, it's not a subcommittee of a committee.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Okay,
So where is it?
It's in 5.5A, and then we'd need to do a global search to find out. It's everywhere. I mean, it's A, B, wherever the finance subcommittee,
So changing subcommittee to committee,
yeah, finance subcommittee to finance committee.
it looks like there are 10
I agree with that.
matches.
Because there may be other committees, we don't want
just
to
make
be
sure it comes
subsidiary to them.
after finance the whole
But
time.
why would we have any subcommittees? I mean, any committees? We want subcommittees, why would we, if they're a committee of the council,
Yeah.
they're a committee?
Yeah,
Yeah, I think there's only one of the 10 that's
Ah.
not specifically finance subcommittee.
Alright,
I found 5.
looks like there are 9.
That's all you had for that?
yeah, that's all I had. Well, then there's number 3 in the large issues. Jerry, you made it back.
Hey, man. Everything done? You all set?
We're on 5.
They're on commas.
Hey, it needs
And
done.
other important things.
All
You,
right,
you
very
you
good.
missed 5 articles worth of commas, well, 4.
4 articles, we're almost there.
All right,
I
wait
don't
a
have too
minute.
many in 5.
We got
Where are the other
Warren's-
4?
All right, Diana has something.
At 5:30.
I just,
So we have those, so we're gonna go, we haven't really done.
We're
the
doing
substantive ones.
some of those as we go
So
through.
those are on our email.
Good grief.
I
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Timely.
we want to,
At least it wasn't tomorrow. The other day's
I
security.
wish it had been.
Amazing.
Wow. I'm still going.
5.2,
yeah,
we have an extra "and" in the second paragraph because we changed the wording of it. So town manager, comma, representatives of the town council.
Sorry, I just,
Oh, sorry,
yeah, I just
I thought you were done.
I just finished fixing all this. Okay, so 5.2,
5.2,
Yeah.
the second paragraph, town manager, comma, representatives of. It's
okay.
just an extra hanging "and."
town manager, comma, representatives
Yeah.
of the town council, comma.
And then Lauren had language.
So,
Last night's 9:38
Smarter
email,
just not to sign any.
the 9 p.m. one. The
Paying
V2AC.
attention.
Anyway. Do we want to say for how many representatives of town council, the schools, and so forth, library board of trustees should be appointed to the budget coordinating committee?
I think it's sort of, it's been operating fairly informally already.
Yeah.
There's a track record for it, I wouldn't
Okay, so
bother.
it's not like JCPC, wherever it got them to.
I think they model it basically after that, but sometimes they have the
More
finance
casual.
directors
All
come
right,
out.
if you don't care,
I don't think
can
it,
live
I think
without
it's
it.
working okay the way it
All right,
is.
fine. Then, where are you, Mandy?
Are you looking at Lauren's comment about open meeting law?
Yeah.
I got an
5.2.
email from Alyssa about this too.
She already saw it?
Seriously? How?
Yeah.
She's in the middle of a meeting.
Right.
But she already saw the comment?
She saw the comments, wanted to know if we needed copies, and I said, no, we've got it.
Grief.
This is
Where are we right now?
Alyssa.
5.2.
So
People.
she says, Alyssa says, she has a point regarding wording, but that's a terrible idea. You do want budget coordinating group to continue to be subject to open meeting law. On the optics alone, this is bad. Don't do it. So Lauren,
Okay.
Yes.
Lauren, I haven't read any of Lauren's comments.
Lauren meanwhile is saying, it may be
Okay.
useful to clarify whether this group is intended to be subject to the open meeting law. It is likely the case that the size and composition of the budget group will be changeable. The following language could be inserted to address the same. Where this group will be of varying size and composition, depending on what is most appropriate for any particular discussion, such group shall not constitute a public body, and meetings of the group will not be subject to the open meeting law. I didn't know we could do that.
Wow.
There are ways we can machinate, but it's,
I think
No.
it's
Okay, so
basically,
if we all think it's a bad
been
idea,
open to the meeting.
It's always been open.
let's move on then.
yeah,
always
well,
been
I would say
if you
ignore it.
have a small subgroup, in theory, you don't have to, but I just don't like that.
Yeah. Why exempt this one?
Yeah,
Yeah.
What about
especially
JCPC?
such an important one.
Yeah, yeah.
It's one where you want people to be watching.
And people do come.
People come,
Yeah.
and
So we don't
So let's
agree.
ignore it.
So back to Diana's comment,
I was just gonna say, and I think it's fine the way it is, I'm not saying you should include it, but I think what some of the logic might be behind trying to give it that opening is if it's gonna be a really difficult budget year, that initial meeting where you're trying to get buy-in from schools and library and council, potentially having it so that they can negotiate behind closed doors, get a little bit of sense of it. My gut is that's the logic for that. Having said that, I don't,
I mean, that was.
I think the superintendent and the library director and the
I mean, I don't remember any,
town manager could do
well,
that.
there were a couple of times where the public was available at those meetings, but even in the beginning stages, when you were really doing some horse trading, it's just, it was like a natural thing. Hey, we got a problem here. We got 2.2% increase that we got to deal with, and there's the schools over here coming in with this budget, and you're coming. What are some ways in which we can make this work for everyone? Okay,
Yeah, it hasn't been a problem.
okay.
just not a problem.
so Diana's point about adding number of representatives per.
Yeah, but it's all right, as long as
Okay.
Andy explained that it's in flux often, I don't care.
It's pretty much worked.
Okay.
So what about Paul's point here
Where's that?
about
Yeah.
using the plural implies that there must be multiple members from every participating, must be multiple representatives from every participating group. You don't,
It's likely that there would be the director and a trustee for the libraries. It's likely there would be the superintendent and
Right.
a
I think
school
the
committee
wording's
member.
fine.
yeah, I certainly, I just,
Okay.
here we are, and there's a comment I can actually see.
Well, he
You
asked
could put
actually
in-
how many from each,
Yeah.
but
We should not put any specific numbers in
but
there.
I'm happy.
No, he's saying, do you want plural or
I'm just
singular?
saying, if you put the S in parentheses, it leaves the option of having
Just
less
one.
than two.
I'll go with that. As long
Which
as-
was what I understood Paul to be asking, is that,
Right, that's what it is.
Yeah,
If
put
we
that.
put parentheses around the S's, then we,
Because if we
Do we need to
leave
go
it
a
singular,
representative?
then there's only one.
Yeah.
right.
Whereas if you leave it plural, you have to have more, but if you put the parentheses, you could argue it could be either.
Fine, let's put in the parentheses. I would think you want those people, but that's.
Parentheses
Oh,
around
It
S.
doesn't stop.
Parentheses S after
Yeah, right.
representative.
so wherever it says
So in
representatives,
those
we put
three
parentheses
places.
around the S's.
One,
Right.
I see.
There's just three, yes.
Three, there we go.
I have a few
That's a
more
good idea.
in
Okay.
5.
I have a question too, but go on, you first.
Where are you?
5.5.
Me too.
The, within 30 days of referral, I think it might be clear if we say of receipt of referral. I don't know though. This was, Paul had mentioned 30 days of what?
Well, we say the town council shall refer.
Yes.
Immediately on receipt, the town council will refer within 30 days of referral, refers to that referral.
Okay, we don't have to add receipt of then.
I think we're okay.
Okay. B, same section, the agency on the third line needs a lowercase a.
Yep.
And in C, I would create a new sentence on the third line after expenditures required by law. I'd change that semicolon to a period and then capitalize except.
you're losing votes from the semicolon lead.
I am, I totally am. 5.6 needs the space deleted on the very last reference to
Oh, wait a
2.10b.
minute, while you were
Yeah.
on 5.5, I didn't appreciate, I guess, or I'd like some justification for removing that large paragraph that you took out. What I'm wondering what your thinking was, and if there wouldn't be times where there would be a problem.
So, that was added at the last minute before our preliminary report at the request of Lauren. It copies the general laws almost word for word. And our finance director and town manager were curious why it was in there. Since it copies the general laws word for word, and we have the phrase right before it, except, it says, except on the recommendation of the town manager, the town council shall not increase any item in or the total of the proposed budget unless otherwise authorized by the general laws. Since that entire phrase comes from the general laws, it was felt to be redundant in here, because it's already allowed.
Okay, I just want to see where it says general laws in that statement. Okay, I see it. All right. I just could see the point of
yeah.
this, but since it's in the general laws, but.
It's taken directly out of the general laws,
Okay.
which Lauren actually said when she commented on it.
Okay,
So
all right.
that was the
It sort
reasoning
of
behind
sticks out
it.
as an unusual, so.
Yeah.
Section 5.6 we're gonna get into.
Yeah, 5.8. 5.8, the highlighted part, the award of the contract to audit shall be made by the town council on or before September 15 of the year awarded, to potentially allow for multi-year contracts instead of each year.
It's good.
Do you want to put in every third or sixth year specifically? Since,
Then we'd be requiring how many years it has to be.
well, if we say third or sixth, I mean, the comment was that it should be 3 or 6.
But it could be 5 or it could be 4.
Well, then it isn't doing what most people do.
Yeah, but we don't,
All right, I mean,
It's kind of,
I just want to raise the issues. You can,
what is
it
it
is
like?
usually a multi-year contract.
Yeah.
And I was on the finance committee, but I don't know how many years it was, but it was a multi-year contract for good reason, because she wanted that continuity from year to year.
Yeah.
Changing an auditor is really a pain in the butt.
And then in 5.9.
well, wait a minute, so what, you're not doing it each year, so what are
Of
you
the
doing?
year awarded.
I think I find that doesn't work well for me. The award shall be in the year awarded, I mean, it's not really
So-
saying anything.
Shall be made by
Shall
the
be
town
made-
council on or before September 15th of the year awarded,
I understand what you're saying.
or of the
it
year
just-
in which the contract was awarded.
It just doesn't make much information. I personally wouldn't do it that way. For whatever it's worth, it just
Do
seems
you
silly.
have alternate language?
Yeah, I would like to say, of each 3 or 6 year contracts. I don't want it more than 6, and I think 3 would be good.
But this is not talking about the length of the contract, this is just saying whenever there's a contract,
It has to be done.
it has to be done by September
The
15th.
council may determine 4 years is best, because then it would always happen, you could always have it in an odd year when they're, no, an even year when they're elected in an odd year, whereas 3, it might start coinciding with things.
Okay.
5.9,
You could actually, if you wanted to simplify further, you could take the sentence out, that's the prior sentence, the town council shall adopt procedures for selection of such accounting board member.
Yeah, why do you have to?
that's fine
I'm
with me.
fine taking it out.
Yeah, it's because I'd appreciate that. Good move.
Thanks for the suggestion, Mike.
This is more,
This is more,
5.9, so there was a concern that the extension of deadlines, that the extension of time was only to deadlines and not notice requirements. So I've come up with some new wording, changing, so on the first line, town council grant an exception to instead of extension of the deadlines, comma, notice requirements, comma, or publication requirements established by this article. And then there are 2 other places that extension is used, and just exchange that for exception. And the title should also then be
yeah.
exception to time.
time requirements.
Yeah, exception to time requirements.
Should it be plural? Exceptions?
Sure.
Okay, so this is now titled, it's 5.9 Exceptions to Time Requirements. Town manager may request that the town council grant an exception to deadlines, comma, notice requirements, comma, or publication requirements established by this article. Is that correct?
Yep, and then the next sentence, the exception may be granted at the discretion of the council. Such exception shall meet the requirements of the general laws. So 2 more changes from extension to exception.
Well, while we're working on number 3, there's an easy one here.
Also in 5?
Yes, above it, 5.7E.
Okay.
Instead of June 1st, Sandy Puller was suggesting that we should have it be June 30th so it coincides with the other budget. Much though he would like to protect the capital budget, I think it should be on an equal footing with the regular budget. So suggesting changing 1 to 30.
Yeah, I see that. It's fine.
Sandy says so.
Right, I mean, Sandy knows budgeting better than I do.
We're not gonna question
I'm not gonna
him on
argue
that.
with Sandy Pooler,
All right.
ever.
So we're on 6.
Okay.
Do we have an opening for a finance director?
Yeah.
We do.
We do?
Yeah.
We don't have a finance director.
So 6.
She's a planning director. We're going to be discussing 6.2, and that's the only thing I have.
For 6.2 or what?
No, everything else is fine. We're going to come back to 6.2 later.
So I have one thing in 6.2 that doesn't apply to the discussion part, which is in B. I forgot to delete an extra period when we were deleting that whole clause. So there's now 2 periods after
Oh,
the
yeah,
first
I see
sentence. So please get rid of one more of those periods.
6.2.
Okay, so
Not less than 14 days.
I
See that better?
Yeah.
okay, I see it, but that's fine.
Yeah.
Um,
And we'll come back to the rest of the discussion.
I'm not
6.2 what?
sure this was
The
part
se-
of the discussion. I think this is
See all the
another
deleted stuff,
point.
Mike?
Yeah.
Okay.
I didn't delete the period in that entire sentence.
Should I
So that.
check to make sure I
Sure,
have them
what's
in 2 different places?
Yeah.
All right, well, I'll tell you what I'm thinking, and if you tell me we want to discuss it later, that's fine. This is something I believe we even discussed, and whenever you tell townspeople at large that appointments are made on the basis of merit, period, that's a shutout phrase to many
Yeah.
people in town. And we talked about that, and I would like it to be modified. It may be stuff that we took out,
Maybe we can just add that phrase back in.
and that's what
Demonstrated
I'm
by.
wondering, I'm looking for
It
it.
was demonstrated by examination, past performance, or other evidence of competence.
Something like that is better than just straight merit. So let me put it back in and see how that looks. Yeah, because I know people who won't apply because they figure they just don't stand a chance, and yet they would be very good.
I'm okay with rejecting that deletion.
Thank you.
Just, maybe it's enough
Just
what
putting it
we've
back
just
in.
done, but some of these committees, merit sounds like expertise, professional expertise, and some of these committees, you can learn a lot. It's just people who have other skills like.
This is hiring
This is
employees.
hiring, and this is
Oh,
our committees.
where is this?
6.2.
Oh, sorry, we looked at the wrong place.
Yep.
So
we're gonna come back to the section.
Undelete demonstrated through competence?
Yeah.
Yep.
We revisit it next year.
6.3, the third to last paragraph, the one that starts, Board of License Commissioners shall consist of 5 voters. I would get rid of the such appointed at the beginning of the next sentence and so it just says members shall serve for 3-year terms.
I'm sorry, it shot past me too fast. Can you repeat that? ma'am?
The third to last paragraph of 6.3, the one that begins, the Board of License Commissioners shall consist of 5 voters appointed
Yep.
by the town manager. The next sentence just begin members shall serve.
Get rid of such appointed.
Fine.
Anything else?
Not in 6.
7, I'm fine.
I have nothing in 7.
Ranked choice voting's on this list of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so
On to
I
8.
have nothing in 7 other than what's on the list to talk
Yay.
about. I just thought I'd mention that.
In 8,
I got a lot.
I've got 1 at the beginning. In your insert there, it should say the president or chair, not of chair.
Yes, I have that one too.
And just noting that in 8.3, Paul had talked about if you're collecting affidavits or petitions, they should be physically signed, so that's stuck in on in 8.3A on the 5th line. But we also talk about it in 8.4 for the voter veto, and if we're gonna do that in the second line of 8.4A, we should probably have a form prepared by the town and physically signed by blah, blah, blah.
So we're figuring that from now on, digital signatures will be okay.
No, we're saying physical, they have to be physical.
Well, okay, the wording, such as it is, only talks about physically signed by 10 voters.
Right.
And,
Oh, you mean after that?
yeah, I mean, I think,
You put it in the wrong spot, I think.
I didn't
No,
touch it.
I
Andy,
think the physically should be
physically should be a line above
preceding sign,
in the preceding line.
Yeah.
before 250.
Yeah, okay. So in other words,
Ah.
we're asking physical, I'm useful.
All in favor?
So do you want to add that word to the other
Well,
occurrences?
I think you should, because there is gonna come a time, I bet you, where we could do some of this online. But,
So
I
I
want to
guess
tell
there
you,
was-
the multi-billion-dollar contracts are signed by DocuSign.
Yeah, I don't know if we want to take this
Paul-
seriously or not.
Paul's concern was the online petitions,
Mhm.
you know,
It's very
petition.org
easy to get.
or whatever they're called, where someone just types in their name. And then someone might submit that as their 250 signatures to the town council.
Right.
That was his concern,
Right, I
was
mean,
those
you-
online petitions.
Yeah.
right, I'm fine with people doing it the old-fashioned way. I don't have any trouble.
Although, you know, the whole DocuSign thing, you can only do once. You can't do it. Someone can sign 3 or 4 times because it goes to a different email address every time.
So, I apologize for this, these are a number of changes.
Can we, just so this physically is going in, I mean, it's already in there once in 8.3A.
Where are we
Is it
taking
going-
that?
It should be in 8.3A, the 4th line,
Yep,
not the 5th line though. I don't think, right?
No, I agree,
Yeah.
because the way it is now, it
Physically
looks
signed.
like you're only asking for if.
Yeah, so the
people-
physical signing should be the,
Yeah.
see the 250, not the
right, shall be
10.
physically signed by at least blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then in
D?
8.4, just, do you wanna,
Oh wait, 8.3D would need it too.
Tom?
The supplemental initiative petition shall be physically signed.
I was just looking at the sentence below that says signatures don't all need to be on the same piece of paper,
That's true.
which to me would sort of clear up the question of whether they were physical signatures or not. Although I'm not playing with my own thinking, so let's just,
Okay.
I'll print it out, it's on paper.
Yes. And then in 8.4A is the other place,
Okay.
second line.
Are we gonna discuss this issue of how to do the calculations?
Yes, that's one of our,
Can we get to my changes first?
yeah, we'll come back to
Okay.
the
Yeah, I
calculations
just
later.
asking.
It's on the list, yep.
8.1, the 3rd line, instead of call a meeting, call an open meeting. It's the very last sentence, last word. And then the 3rd to last line, no such open meeting, I get rid of such, so it's just no open meeting.
Wait a second. You said the last line,
2nd to last line, sort of.
Okay,
last
on the
sentence.
first paragraph.
Yeah, no such open meeting, I just read no open meeting.
Okay, and what was the first change?
Shall call an open meeting, the third line, last word.
Okay, got it.
To be consistent in 8.2B, the interior 1 and 2 should be little I and little double I.
Okay,
Um,
that's fine.
And I would, again,
Get
to
that
be
right.
consistent, the very last of B, just as we added above in 8.1, as determined by the town council president.
Where's that?
I would add that in B, free petition, at the very end of B, for consistency's sake.
I'm sorry,
And no hearing shall be heard upon
no,
anyone's subject.
what 8.1?
8.2B,
Oh, 8.2.
Those would be as determined.
as determined by the town council president.
Okay.
Right now it says as determined by the president or chair of the appropriate body, but you're saying,
The 8.2B doesn't have anything other than town council, so it's just the president.
We're copying what we did up above, but
as determined by the town council president.
Yeah. 8.3A, I think it's clear if we move the phrase in the very first sentence with the clerk of the town council to after filing from the very end.
Say it again?
Move the phrase with the clerk of the town council in the first sentence to after the word filing.
Okay.
It just
Yes.
makes it
Sorry.
clearer.
Yes,
Filing with
I
the clerk.
understand,
Yes.
I'd like to fully hear it. Yeah.
In 8.3B, I got rid of be and by, but I didn't change utilized to utilize. So the D needs to be deleted.
yes. That was mine. Forgot about that.
You missed that one. Under C, the second line, within 60 days after it says publication under section 210A, I would rephrase it to 60 days, within 60 days and after compliance with section 210, and delete the A.
That's fine.
And what? After compliance with?
After compliance with section 210. For consistency, in D, supplementary petitions, after the 30, add the parentheses and the number itself, 30. We've done it in other places.
Wait, sorry, so within 60 days and after
Compliance with section 210,
No A.
no A.
Yep.
And then in D, add the number 30 in parentheses after the first word, 30, for consistency. H of 8.3, time of taking effect or other affirmative percent as required, it says by state law, but to make it consistent with how we've referred to it elsewhere, required by general laws or this charter. In case our charter a lot of times actually requires a higher percentage.
Is charter capitalized?
Yes, charter's capitalized. In 8.4, this is where things might get a little complicated, and I apologize. I haven't liked the wording of this. I'm not changing anything substantive, but I just thought it was confusing as to when the council would be required to actually hold an election. So all my changes attempt to make it clearer.
This is A4A.
This is 8.4A. So the first sentence after a petition on a form prepared by the town, comma, and delete the and. So it reads, we're gonna change this to a petition on a form prepared by the town, comma, signed by a minimum of 5% of the registered voters as of the date of the most recent town election, comma, and addressed to the town council protesting against the measure or any part. In future things, we use the words thereof instead of it. So I would change of it to thereof. The next sentence is fine after the end of the next sentence, the town council shall at the next regular town council meeting reconsider its vote on the measure or part thereof protested against. I would end the sentence there and start a new paragraph. Delete the and, start the new paragraph with the word if. if the measure is not, we use rescinded, every other place in this section we use repealed. So if the measure is not repealed, I would change that too. And then I add a whole list of things. This is where, but I think this will clear, at least it cleared it up in my mind. If the measure is not repealed,
That's good.
comma, the number of signatures is found sufficient by the Board of Registrars and the town attorney finds that the measure or part thereof may be lawfully protested against, comma, the town council shall provide for submission of the question for a determination by the voters. So we're setting forth the 3 things that are required for it to go to the voters, right there in the sentence, instead of just one of them.
Even though we haven't referred to them yet, it's okay.
Yeah,
We're
well,
foreshadowing.
that's why I think
Setting
it's
it
been
up.
so confusing to me to read, is because we don't even refer to those beforehand, but we're saying they had to have this election, and then we start talking about other
I
things.
did have to read it twice. I remember that.
So could you read it one more time?
So that new paragraph, even though it's not labeled a B, it's still part of A. If the measure is not repealed, comma, the number of signatures is found sufficient by the Board of Registrars, comma, and the town attorney finds that the measure or part thereof may be lawfully protested against, comma, and then the rest of the sentence, the town council shall provide, blah, 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 blah.
Okay, so if the measure is not repealed, if the number of signatures is found sufficient by the Board of Registrars, and
Like, the town attorney finds that the measure or part thereof may be lawfully protested against. It's the way I thought about doing it without having to renumber everything, even though it foreshadows.
that the measure or portion
Part thereof,
or part
to keep it
thereof
consistent. And then
may be
C,
lawfully protested against.
in C, again for consistency, it says immediately following receipt of the Board of Registrar certificate, I would add the phrase finding sufficient signatures. I think we do it in the previous section, just for consistency.
Finding what?
Sufficient signatures.
Sorry, I missed that one.
In C, after the word certificate on the very second line, comma, well, so it would be receipt of, immediately following receipt of the Board of Registrar certificate finding sufficient signatures, the clerk of the town council. In E, in the parenthetical paragraph, a comma after here for consistency. That's all I have.
That's all.
In 8,
Comma, here, comma, insert.
yep. Here, comma, insert.
I have one other. In 8.5E, this is the one where we're saying things that can't be subject to initiative or voter veto. This is an appropriation of any sum of money for any purpose amounting to less than 1% of the total annual budget of the town. Just want to double check that because the math is that we have an $86.6 million budget, so that would be anything smaller than $860,000.
As I recall, Marilyn had commented as on this, and I think you dealt with it at the meeting when I was not here, saying that that was a fairly low threshold.
I was thinking it was more like 86,000, so I don't know if I was doing the right math or I just wanted to like make sure that we're good, that people can't bring anything that's under $860,000 to veto it.
Yes.
I mean, we're trying to avoid
Right,
nitpicking the budget,
Yeah.
right,
so less than 1% of the budget, we're good with that.
Mhm.
right. Yeah, you definitely wouldn't want it to be 1/10 of 1%.
No,
That would be,
That would be horrible.
that would be bad.
That'd be really
I think we
bad.
keep it 1%,
yeah,
Yeah.
that'd be too small.
which would be almost the cost of holding the election. That'll be double the cost of holding an election potentially.
Anyway, what is the objection to 1%?
I
don't
don't
know
have
what
one,
Maryland's was.
I don't have an objection, but
Did she think it was too small?
Yeah.
Oh,
She thought it was too soon.
Too small. 860.
almost $1 million.
does she know what our budget was?
Yeah.
I think the thinking is that, I mean, even 860,000, it is a little bit of, so that everyone's taken the time to put together this budget, and then now citizens are coming forward and saying, but we don't like this $700,000. And
It'll
so,
have to be a million. or
Uh,
800,
Yeah, but how many signatures you got?
you know,
Yeah.
if you're good with it, but, you know,
She thought it should be bigger.
yeah.
Is that generally the case? Is that,
Let's see.
I was assuming that it's in here because it's a fairly common cutoff, without actually having done that research myself.
But, you know, the initiative was such a high bar anyway, you can get it there.
Yeah,
Someone's going to, you know, is that 5% of the voters?
yeah,
Yeah,
of the register,
register.
5% of registered voters?
which is it's over 1,000.
Someone's going to go out there and get 5% of the voters to agree on something that's $860,000 that you want. I'm okay with it.
All right, just double checking. Article 9?
Wait a second.
Oh,
Well, I just have a question. 8.6, wasn't there a question about town election? And should we say local? Or a local town election?
There's no other kind of town election.
Because the question was, couldn't you say any election in the town, whether it be for president or governor, is still a town election? So I was gonna put the word local.
we say in elections.
Any regular town
The
election.
regular town election shall be held on the first Tuesday following the first Monday in November each odd numbered year.
Yeah,
So I think
it's good enough.
that
I think it
takes care of what the town election is.
okay. I just feel it's a little clearer with local, but that's fine.
All right, Article 9.
Just a few. Really easy. C and D of 9.8, Mike, the space between 9.8 and the letter.
The pagination here has gotten a little off on mine. It's Article 9 starts right after 8. I assume we want a new page break.
Yeah,
We'll fix that.
we'll make sure that's fixed.
I'm sorry about this, so 9.
9, 8, C and D, there's that space issue between section 9.8 and the letter, just in those two spots. And in 912C, this is my hating of hyphens. Split it into 2 sentences. And the vote of each member shall be recorded in the minutes, period, if the vote is unanimous. Only that fact.
You mean of semicolons.
Of semicolons, sorry.
I agree with all those. Just
I
was
like
pretty
some.
related. That's what I did.
That's all I had.
But I agree it's simpler.
It's just,
Anybody
it's
else have
easier
anything
to
for
read.
9?
Yeah, I did. Okay, let's see. Let's go back to make sure I can. Okay, so in 9.7, the green sentence says, it's green, all members of the committee shall be voters not holding elective office when appointed, but they could be serving. It's not clear.
97?
Yeah. I was trying to be sure that there wasn't an interval after they're elected, but they haven't been sworn in yet. I want to make sure that nobody gets to serve in 2 offices. And I wasn't sure that sentence was clear when I read it last night or this morning or whatever.
I don't know what happened, dude. All I did was move the sentence up. You didn't catch it.
Is it clear to you? Then I will just drop it at one other point.
So the point of it is that we want, the bylaw review committee, we want to make sure that they are not elected officials.
Maybe it's not catched
The
in
town council.
Just have a deletion instead of an insertion.
Oh, that's not the one I meant. There's another one. Maybe it's 9.6.
Well, 9.6 and
It's the same
9.7 are
thing.
very similar.
Yeah. Okay.
We just moved a sentence up.
We just moved it into a different spot.
Yeah, mine is green. Yeah, sorry.
How'd you do that?
Okay, never mind. I can't put my finger on what it was that was annoying about that. So let me look at 9.8E and see if that's clearer. Okay, this one I do remember.
9.8.
Okay, A and B. There shall be a master plan containing the elements described in Mass General, blah, 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 blah. I'm looking for the word where it says, it shall be approved. And I thought that comes too early. Shall be approved, it is a B. Shall be approved by the planning board. They should really examine it before it shall be approved. And in the next one, C, you talk about the regular review and the amendments and so forth. But it seemed to me just to say they shall approve it before any examination thereof seemed a little bit,
We're saying there has to be a master plan.
yeah, and I'm not disagreeing
And
with that.
then it
I'm
shall
not
be approved by
saying-
the planning board.
Right, but it should be, shall be examined and approved with amendment, if you like, or something. I mean, just saying, here's the master plan, approve it,
Well, they're the one, the planning
ones who
board's
do
the
it.
one that comes up with the master plan.
but they already have.
No, but then they have to do a new one every 20 years under law.
Right, but will it be 20 years when this comes into effect, the charter?
According to D,
I don't know.
Given that all this is guided by General Law 81D, which specifies that every 20 years there's a new plan.
And the planning board is the
And
board that
the
does it.
planning board is the board that,
But this
creates it.
becomes the charter on March 31st, I remember.
that doesn't affect the count that's already going.
Yeah, it's probably partway
Yeah.
through the 20 years.
All right, if you feel that,
Because what we've said here is that general law governs the timing, and the timing isn't going to be affected by whether the charter was in place or not.
right.
okay. It seemed to me like it was pushing a rule, you must do this without it having the opportunity to do anything to it. Just here it is, do it. That's the way I read it.
Yeah, I think it's just when it comes time for adoption, they're the ones who will do it.
But yeah.
Okay, those are my comments on
Anybody else on 9?
Not on 9.
10?
So, Mike, in 10.6, did you guys have a chance to figure out whether that clause is not needed?
No, that was on, let me see. Chapter
268 of the 1987 Acts. It doesn't appear to have anything to do with appointments of anything, but I didn't want to base it on my own.
Yeah, I didn't take a look here, it's very quickly.
While he's looking, the dates for the alternative election, because then I can go through and we can do it. January 24th is a Thursday. Sandra Burgess pointed that out. It is the week of Martin Luther King Day. So I asked her which is better. She clearly prefers the Thursday over the Tuesday of that week. But when she pointed that out, I checked the other dates on the alternative election dates, and September 1st, the nomination paper availability is actually a Saturday. So I propose we move it to August 31st. And October 21st, which is when the nominations papers would need to be returned, is actually a Sunday. So I propose we move that to October 22nd. Just so we're not actually invoking our own computation of time rules. Does that sound good to everyone? So when we get there, those will be some of my changes to Mike.
I don't have any problem with that. Are we making changes that lessen the impact on Sandra?
The 24th of January, the election on a Thursday, she came back with, it's in a comment here, H29, that she really prefers, if we're going to do it that week, put it on a Thursday, not a Tuesday.
Okay.
Because of all sorts of setting up and
Okay,
trainings and
And we
everything.
definitely want to do it that
Yeah.
week.
Yeah,
Fine.
so keeping that on the 24th would actually please her. even though it's a Thursday. And since it would be a special election, completely off anyway,
And this is the alternate schedule.
That's the alternative
If we don't get a
schedule,
special act,
yeah.
which is unlikely, but
so.
after we get it right. So do you need the, are you,
Who deleted that? Do we know?
I did.
I think we do need it.
Do you need it? Okay. I wasn't sure. That's why I asked.
Because the chapter 268 is establishing a liability insurance fund and is referring to commissioners of trust funds.
Okay.
So.
I couldn't see in that act who appointed them.
Well, which is
We can
why
keep it in.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think you want to keep that in
Okay.
there because it said the town manager shall appoint the membership of town council approval. So.
Okay. That's fine. Like I said, I wanted it checked. That's all. So we'll reject that change. So, given what we just talked about, Mike, in 10.7D, on the fourth line, September 1 needs changed to August 31st. And at the end of that line, October 21 goes to October 22.
So August 31st instead of September 1st. October 22nd.
Instead of the 21st.
Okay.
In E, there's my space deletion again on the first line between 10.7 and D. Same space deletions in O. About 8 lines down.
Wow.
In P, number 1, the very last one, the space deletion. In Q, the second to last line has a double period, so we need to delete one of them. In V, the space deletion, right under where I typed in section 10.7U.
which one is this?
V. In 10.9, September 1 needs changed to August 31st. This is the actual section of alternative election dates. And October 21 needs changed to the 22. And then at the end, the space deletions again. 2 of them between 7 and J and 7 and F. And that's all I have.
I don't have anything in 10.
All right.
Now.
11.
We're gonna add a whole new article tonight.
Just because we finished, and I don't want to finish yet, just kidding.
We
In,
have the big subjects.
yes, in Article 2 though, there's a Lauren Goldberg sentence that she suggests adding. In 2.2A, this is the council president, vice president, election and term, blah, blah, blah. She suggests adding at the end, notwithstanding any other provision of this section, the council may reorganize it at any time at its discretion. Alyssa says you definitely want to add that so that you can change president when they want to step down, etc.
Sounds smart.
Gives you the
Sounds fine.
flexibility. So that would be adding that sentence at the end of 2.2A, notwithstanding any other provision of this section, the council may reorganize at any time at its discretion.
Town
You could
council.
just leave out the notwithstanding part.
Town council.
Yeah, could we just add that council may reorganize at any time at its discretion?
I guess.
Because I love good notwithstanding.
She loves her notwithstanding.
So we're saying maybe just the second clause.
No, notwithstanding.
Get rid of the notwithstanding.
Town council may reorganize at any time at its discretion.
That's it. All right.
Or whenever he loses his mind.
Yes.
I hope this doesn't sound small-minded, but I wouldn't mind if you let the town manager know that we were chagrined by the timing of receiving this
Yeah, it's not
information from
terse note. Just said timely.
the time. Well, I mean, it was really.
That's very terse.
It didn't even come in
She's had
time
6
for
weeks.
you two to look at it, let alone the rest of us at
Right.
the time.
Yeah.
We've all been pretty good, generally not everybody every time, but that coming to these meetings prepared.
No.
How about very chagrined?
Unacceptable, I don't know, it just seems like something should be
Well,
said.
revenge,
Huh?
serve revenge.
Sorry.
Well,
It's too bad.
speculation about motives.
Do people need, do
I
people need
will
a,
point out, before the record, when we first had the debate about it, I told everyone how long it took her to get back to me.
Yep.
I don't think that's,
Yeah, back to.
it was frustrating at the time.
Just think-
Should we take a 5-minute break and stretch our legs?
Sure,
And then
before we do these
dive
things.
into these big pieces? Is that all right?
It's just outrageous.
We're on the 6.
All right, we're going into this,
The big six.
the big stick. I mean, we did part of one already, so.
All right,
The first one,
wait a minute, Andy, I'm going to catch up.
All right.
so there are comments in section 211 and 3.3A. And I guess what they revolve around is, should the council approve the, I mean, I guess the question that has been raised by MMA and our current town manager is that the council is appointing the manager and then holding the manager accountable. And then if they also have some control over who the manager can appoint, is that somehow limiting the power of the manager to hire his or her team? And, you know, then if the council rejects any of his or her appointments, then how can they hold the manager accountable? And so they're pushing for, you know, just have the manager appoint and not have the council approve, or have a subset of the key department heads, like assistant town manager, finance director, police chief, fire chief, superintendent of public works, and then leave the rest to the manager. Currently, we have that the council has 14 days to object or the appointment goes through. And, is that it? That's basically it.
The other thing is we have that the council adopts a measure providing for the use and composition of search committees.
Well, that's a
So-
separate thing.
Well, it's a separate thing, but it's kind of related to it.
That's number 2.
Okay, but number
Oh.
one,
Okay, sorry.
I was just going to speak to. The second part of what you said, that is the subset, I feel very strongly should not be just the purview of the town manager. Okay? I
The
think
search committee.
No, we're talking
No,
about,
just number
we're
one.
just talking about approval of,
we're talking about.
council approval of
Number one on this.
manager
Yes.
appointments.
You're saying that this should not be the sole purview of the manager.
You like having the council as a,
Yeah, I think
Check
those
it
are
out.
such key appointments. Really, they are almost beyond his immediate administration in a way. I just, not so much the Department of Public Works, but certainly the police chief, fire chief. Those two seem so critical to me. I would certainly want the council to have a voice.
and just before, Mike, you were gonna, I mean, I think Mandy made a chart early on that I went back and looked at that sort of listed what happens in various council manager jurisdictions about how they handle it. And it looked to me like most of them do approve manager appointments, but Mike, you were gonna check that out too, right?
I did. It's all over the place, but I would say plurality is approving, well, it's close between approving all and approving a subset. But it's again, it's all over the place. I can go through I have 10 of them right here if you'd like. So Barnstable, all appointments. Chelsea has none. Randolph, all with a 15-day window. Watertown is all as provided by ordinance.
When you're saying all, you mean the council?
Council's approving all of them.
All department
And
heads,
when
yeah.
you say all, do you mean every town employee?
No,
No, all department
The
heads.
heads.
Department heads.
Although in some cases, well, in Barnstable it says all appointed, the text says all appointments. I'd have to go double check whether the town manager is directly appointing everyone or just department heads or that. But
Department heads, according to my chart.
okay. So just where was that? Randolph, is all department heads with a 15-day window or they're automatically approved. Watertown is
So that's like us.
subject to confirmation of council as provided by ordinance. Franklin is subject to ratification of the town council for most of them, and then it does a whole carve out, a strange carve out for the treasurer collector, which I don't quite understand. Bridgewater, all appointments of department heads shall be subject to ratification of town council. Winthrop, notice of all appointments shall be filed with the town council, and then it goes on to say, town council may, by a vote of at least 6 of its members, reject the proposed appointment of a police chief or fire chief. So it's just those two. Southbridge, subject to confirmation, and then it goes through, it lists off the department heads. I don't like that. I think that's dangerous if you're changing departments around. It goes through that. East Long Meadow, police, fire, DPW shall become effective unless rejected by a majority of town council within 45 days. That's a long
That's a
window.
long time.
Don't have to wait for the limbo.
Palmer, Palmer, they're referring each name to a committee, so they must be all of them, from what it looks like. So it's, a lot of them are all, some of them are just police and fire, DPW, and then there's a couple that are not.
So, Jerry, I think you were next.
Well, I believe currently the select board doesn't have to approve any department heads. There are 2 search committees, police and fire. And so I'm curious, Diana, are you saying in your experience that hasn't been a very good method of?
No, not at all.
But you're against
I
continuing.
actually stress police and fire as being the ones that I
Okay.
felt probably or should not be under town manager control completely. I like the search committees, and that's step 2. But the 2 that I can see the town manager feeling that he wants more control over the assistant town manager, the finance director, and the superintendent of public works. I have less problems with that, with those not going to the town council. But police and fire, I feel, are different.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're not part of the direct management team, in my thinking, whereas the others are.
Nick?
I'm leaning toward MMA and the town manager. I think the town manager needs to be able to pick his team, and he's best able to understand the chemistry, some of the dynamics of who the staff are, and what's needed. That members of the council, particularly voting as a group, are unlikely to have. And that's why we hire somebody who's a professional, who's knows how to manage things. It just seems to me, I guess I could go with those 2 not being appointed, but particularly with hiring committees, it seems to me that the manager should be able to pick his team.
It seems to me that
Or her team.
it seems to me that the way this reads is that we're not, the council isn't choosing anyone, not at all.
Yeah.
Town manager is in fact choosing and appointing. The town manager is referring it back to the council for approval or disapproval. So I don't see where this is encroaching on the town manager's power at all. Especially when you look at the second part of it, that we're getting ready to take up in relationship to search committees. I don't see where the town council is intruding upon the territory of the town manager. I just don't. We have, town manager, town council has nothing to do with the choosing of those people at all.
That's a good point of order or whatever.
Sure.
This is where I should take a little bit more notes, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
probably. Sort of, that's what the main arguments were, yeah. Mandy?
So I can see what the MMNA and Paul and Andy Steinberg also wrote to Andy and I today with the same thing. I can see their point. But I know we're entrusting the manager with the authority to lead. Yet at the same time, it's one of the few concrete checks and balances that this town council has, is to do that without firing the manager. And we heard from the select board, we heard from lots of people, that it's really hard to fire a manager. And if that's going to be if that's what we're gonna rely on as the check on the manager's appointment authority, I don't think that's sufficient. The firing of the manager is the check. I don't see a 14-day window for essentially ratifying who the manager picks as problematic. It's 2 weeks. It's clearly normal within manager council charters to have this. It's not out of the ordinary. The MMMA, of course, they want the manager to have even more power, but I don't see it as abnormal. And my bigger concern was when Paul pointed out that the town council was the one that we saddled with adopting a measure providing for the use and composition of search committees, which meant in theory the town council could adopt a measure that has only themselves on the search committee, and then they approve it, and they've taken all the power away from the manager. So I've got language to change that because I saw that as tremendously problematic. But the 14-day window, I think that's a reasonable check and balance, because you don't want to have to go to the firing immediately. That isn't as reasonable as a check and balance.
Could I ask, you want to go to firing the manager?
That's
That's the lever you
essentially
have
the
if you don't
lever you
fire.
have if you don't have ratifications.
What's the 14-day?
For ratifying the manager's appointments, you could then not ratify it. That's sort of an intermediary step of a check on the manager besides the only lever you'd have, which is
I
firing.
mean, we've heard of situations where, were you gonna talk about that? Or, I mean, where a select board might have, had to go to a previous manager and say, if you hire this such and such department head, we will fire you. And that's not a particularly healthy way to operate either. I mean, that's the only leverage you have.
And the select board turned out to be right, in my opinion, in this instance.
Terry?
Well, if it's the case I'm thinking of, that had a search committee. And the manager was going to go over the search committee's head, and not hire the person recommended. In fact, hire a person that was virtually unrecommended. So that's different from the manager looking for a finance director, say, doing his or her research, finding somebody they think is top-notch, and then having to be second-guessed by the council who knows nothing about what a good finance director looks like. Or would they then review all of the files to say, well, how did you come to this decision? Would they then look at the interviews? I feel like this is unbelievable micromanaging, and I think you're going to get second-class town managers under the system.
Wait a
Do
minute.
you feel that way for the police and fire?
Not for police and fire, I think there should be a search committee.
Do you feel that the search committees give the necessary check and balance?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
And what would happen if the manager went above the search committee's head? Go to firing? Is that the limit?
There's going to be trouble if you do this. And it's going to become public what you've done.
But see, to have that situation as a possibility is much worse than having it come before.
The threat work.
But, well, yeah, the threat works, but you have to use a threat. Why do you have to get to that level when you can have this review? But and the other thing is, when you look at the language, it's he is referring a name. A name, not names, not any, but a name. We're not, the council is only acting on that name.
But under,
What information?
with what information are you acting on that name? If it's
Presumably-
just a rubber stamp, why do it?
They didn't sit on the interviews.
I don't
Well,
get it.
presumably they would do some, you know, if somebody came to them and said, you should really check this out, they would probably check it out. If they don't hear anything, they'd probably say, oh, that sounds pretty good. I guess I'm trying to imagine
I don't like it.
what happens if you have a bad manager versus what happens if you have a bad council. And what do you know, what's the case that you're trying to protect against? I'm kind of wondering though, I mean, most of these models, it sounds to me like at least have some approval. And I don't know, it doesn't sound that intrusive to me. I mean, it may end up being a rubber stamp, but if there's somebody who has some information that they think the council should know, they will get it to the council, and the council can then say, oh, wait a minute, what's with this? And they can at least question it. Whereas, you know, I don't know if I'm just like, I don't want to re-edit the stuff that we have, so I may be a little tired. But I do think that, you know, there's a reason that other charters have this provision in, and that we based it on. And I do feel like MMA is going to be, of course they want the manager to be as unfettered as possible, but I can see the other side as well. Meg?
It seems if someone on the council had some provocative information about a candidate that was so strong, and they knew the candidate was being interviewed, and that there would be myriad ways they could get that information to the search committee.
But there's no guarantee they'd know the candidates being interviewed.
Sure, it's announced.
No,
Well,
only
only
the
if they're
finalists.
The
Only the
finalists.
finalists.
So that's enough. You have finalists, and I mean, they're not gonna see the whole list.
But it might only be the one finalist too.
Well, they'll have a chance, they'll hear that there's a finalist, and they'll have a chance to give that information in a way that would be more effective, because the search committee will be able to follow it up and find out whether it's, you know, what's the basis of it. Rather than, it's really going over the head of the search committee as well as the manager. And it may not be accurate, you know, it just seems that there's no, just what Jerry said, there's no way that the council majority is gonna know as much as the search committee did.
But there are no rules that say that the town manager has to accept the recommendation of the search committee. There's nothing that says that. Nowhere does it say the town manager has to accept the recommendation of the search committee.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
It's true.
So the town council can say, we don't approve, and the manager can say, thanks for your input.
No, this is
No,
the
No,
search
the
committee.
search
Search committee, the search
Not,
committee.
not the town council.
Search committee, there's nothing that says that the town manager has to accept the recommendation of the search committee.
Well,
Does the search committee usually recommend a one candidate?
Yeah. So
Oh,
we're
yeah.
saying this is who I want
this
to
is,
hire. That's all.
we've spent hours and hours and hours interviewing people and reading and studying this, and this is who we
References?
think you should appoint.
So is the town manager a rubber stamp?
Is the town manager at that point a rubber stamp? Pretty much. Yeah.
But they've sat in on interviews, so the town manager participates, right?
I mean,
Well,
In theory, the manager's on the search committee.
right, and also interviews of the top three.
if the town manager is hiring an assistant town manager, the town manager is hiring that person. It's not the search committee hiring that person.
I wouldn't have a search committee for assistant. I would just do it for police and fire.
Okay, well,
Personally.
We've set that in theory, it's search committees for department heads.
I know.
So maybe that's a consensus position to give the council approval over just the police and fire chiefs.
Sure.
I don't.
I like it the
so
way it
wait a
is.
minute. What?
I like it the way Irvin, maybe Andy. I like the way it is, so I don't know if it's consensus to say limit.
I would do all or none, I would not cherry pick.
Well,
Mike, I think, was trying to be heard.
I just wanted, since you've already added the search committee piece to this, and they are linked in some ways, that although it's very common, it looks like, in the other council manager charters to have the appointment ratification piece in some way, shape, or form. I could not find any other council manager that had a search committee that was constructed by council. I found one where that said, Chelsea says the city manager may establish procedures for the selection of department heads, including but not limited to the establishment of selection or screening committees. But I couldn't find, and it's possible, I was searching for the word screening and search and screen, and maybe there's another thing I missed, but I couldn't find in those same 10, but any others.
Mhm.
So
And
I just
there's-
wanted to put that out there.
And that's the next
Right.
next related concern is having the council designated the search committee is another way of sort of potentially circumventing the
That one-
manager's ability to select his own. I think we wanted search committees, we put it that the council would designate. I think there's some interest in moving that to the manager designate the search committees. But that they would help select. But, so, I hear a few people saying leave it the way it is, and I guess I would count myself in that camp. So, I don't know.
If I could take a stab at it, we're weighing the danger of creating a system that would perhaps consistently frustrate a town manager.
Okay.
We're imagining that the town manager would be unable to make a case to the town council for their hire. That there's something so out of whack with what the town manager is proposing, presenting to the council, that they're finding themselves blocked. Versus the danger that the town council will be seeking to insert itself in this hiring procedure in a way that's unjustified or unproductive. I'm trying to articulate what you were
That's the
saying
same
before
thing.
about the bad, is it the bad council, is it the bad
You're-
manager?
Those are two sides of the same coin.
Well,
What you're worried about is the manager running roughshod over the council is the
Yeah.
alternative. But I think just to take your example, the council has selected a manager. They think this manager is the right person for the job. Then the manager brings them a candidate for finance director or whatever. And they're gonna say, tell us about that. Why do you think he or she is the right person for the job? This manager is presumably going to make a case, and the council is going to say, well, have you considered this or that? But they're probably likely, if they think the manager is their person that they've designated as CEO, when they're the board of directors, that they're probably going to, unless there's some glaring thing that the manager hasn't considered, they're probably going to say, okay.
Why have something that we're saying is most likely just to be a rubber stamp?
Because sometimes it won't be.
There's the
Because-
possibility that it won't.
But the chances that, it just seems to me it undermines confidence, particularly if the council chooses a search committee. It undermines.
I would argue
think
against that.
Yeah, I think that's what's going to change. The council's not going to be choosing
I guess
a search
as
committee.
annoying and perhaps, sort of professionally, I don't know, undermine seems like such a strong word, but it doesn't seem like
A big deal.
such a big deal to expect the manager to present a case for department heads. So I guess that's where I'm leaning, leave it the way it
I'm
is.
sort of leaning that way too, in terms of information, rather, I mean, it's not a full throttle check. But on the other hand, I think it would be good to know a little bit about the guy you're hiring for finance director. Look, John hired Sandy, and we all thought it was fabulous, and it was. But why not have that kind of interchange? If for some reason something ugly turned up, like once happened in some school superintendent search somewhere, someone hearing the discussion might be able to say, I heard X, Y, and Z about this guy, you better check that out. That wouldn't be such a terrible thing. I'm leaning with Tom. I feel, and Maddie and Andy on this one, I just feel a little bit of a check is a good thing. I feel stronger about what has to happen with police and fire, but overall, I don't see as it would be a big problem. Especially especially since it turns out we're not asking anything that a zillion others are doing.
Right.
You know,
So when we start feeding his dog.
Well, I was gonna say, do we want to, show of hands on how
Yes.
many people want to keep it the same, maybe? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7? Is that right? So, I guess we should keep it the same.
After, did anybody want the other side vote?
Well, I
Or
mean,
opposed?
opposed?
I'm just not abstaining, I'm voting no.
yeah, okay, so,
so it's 7 to 2.
okay, yeah, good. All right, so that's number
Delete that
1.
comment.
What's that?
Delete that comment.
Yes.
Yes. So then number 2 is about search committees, and that is in section 3.3A.
So I propose that we change that third sentence that begins, "The town council shall adopt a measure providing for the use and composition of search committees for department heads," to, "The town manager shall provide for the use and composition of search committees for department heads."
Second.
Does anybody have a problem with moving it to the town manager? No. So we're saying we want search committees,
Yes,
but we want the
definitely.
town manager to be able to set them up. Yeah, reasonable?
Yes.
What number is that?
3.3A?
3.38.
Okay, I just wondered if we wanted a little bit more specificity than that. I'm just wondering if we wanted to say, like, maybe the town manager, the vice chair, and the vice president, and maybe some citizens, sorry, the president and vice chair, and town manager, and maybe some citizens at large chosen by the town manager, something that's a little bit more specified. It's not that I really think the town manager would find cronies and come up with a search committee that I would think is hokey, but I do like having a couple of citizens and let him put it together, but with a little bit of guidance.
I'd just leave it open-ended. Because each search committee might require different things.
I will say that, I think it was Mayor Narkowitz, when I was talking to him, talked about search committees. And he said that any smart chief executive will put a member of the council
Yeah.
on the search committee, so somebody's in the loop. And presumably, they're trying to build support for their team, so they would, you know. And I suppose that the town council as his supervisor could, something to say, just sort of guidance.
Informed.
Yeah. I worry about getting too prescriptive, but you know, and I'm not sure we have time to get the language exactly right and the composition exactly right. So my suggestion would be that we stick to sort of a, you know, put a pin in the ground that we want the town manager to appoint search committees and let them figure it out from there. I suppose the council could the council create some sort of, no, they couldn't, it's the town manager who's they're not gonna do a bylaw about what search committees are gonna look like, right?
No, that's what we had.
Yeah.
We're going away from.
So what's the language that you're proposing?
The town manager shall provide for the use and composition of search committees for department heads.
Good.
Okay,
So you're getting that, you're
Yep.
not, right?
are we
So
generally
you're
okay with that?
taking it from the council to the
Yes.
town manager?
Yeah.
Okay,
I can live with
Do you want
that.
to vote?
Um,
Unanimous,
he-
right?
I think there's a general sense that the body is in favor of that.
You got the pool stuff?
In some finance section, I think we did part of it.
Which number is that? Sorry.
It will be 5.6. Oh, we did that.
We took care of that
one.
Yeah.
5 point, yeah, we took care of the capital budget,
Yeah.
and we took care of the contracts. Yes, that one's
Yeah.
done. Okay,
Love it.
6.2A,
That's the appointments and promotions.
that's about the diversity
Yeah.
language.
So we're deleting all of Sandy's comments in
Yes.
5.
Yeah.
So 6.2A.
So 6.2A, Paul Bachman was concerned about, on the one hand, you know, there's
Non-discriminatory.
not discriminating
Federal law.
and not not screening anybody out on the basis of protected categories. And then there's the question of affirmatively trying to hire on the basis of protected categories. And I think there have been several comments about, concern about how do you do that in a way, because I think our point was that we want hiring on the basis of merit and we want a diverse workforce, town workforce. And so rather than saying all appointments, shall seek, we had tried to say shall seek diversity in the town's workforce. I guess when we were talking last night, we were sort of like, how about if we add a section 6.2C instead of all these categories to just say, the town shall establish personnel policies to actively encourage diverse applicants for town positions. So the whole point is to get a diverse pool of applicants and then hire on the basis of merit, rather than to be figuring out which categories you should be hiring next. So I think it gets across that we're hiring on the basis of merit, but we're going to be asking for personnel policies that actively encourage diverse applicants.
Unbelievable. I mean, it's pretty good, Andy. I mean, so you're going to hire on the basis of merit, right? And someone said, well, you don't want to do merit. And then you're going to put it into personnel policies and procedures that are going to be developed at some point in the future when we don't know it, when that's going to be developed. So either merit is really good and we all agree that it should be on merit, or we strike it out and we put something else in it.
Let me clarify what Andy said, because I think maybe it got confused. So merit is staying. What we're talking about is the last sentence of 6.2A, the one that says all appointments and promotions of town officers and employees or personnel shall seek diversity in the town's workforce, including such categories as age, ethnic, or national origin, blah, 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 blah. Proposing to delete that because Paul specifically had a real concern that if that is in there, he is faced with a decision of either violating federal law or violating the charter, meaning if federal law is non-discriminatory, you cannot discriminate on the basis of this, and this sentence seems to say you need to seek in hiring and promotions, not in applicants, but in actual hiring or promoting diversity in these areas. So he was concerned that that automatically requires or would result in violating either the charter because you didn't discriminate on those grounds, or violating federal law because you did discriminate by purposefully promoting someone that had a Republican political belief or a liberal political belief because you're seeking diversity. So the thought was to delete that to try and get rid of that conflict or potential conflict there. And instead, what we're really looking for is, in order to create that diverse workforce, you need a diverse applicant pool. If you don't have a diverse applicant pool, you can't create a diverse workforce. So instead, adding a C that says that you need to establish some sort of personnel policies in that sort of advertising and all that actively encourages that diverse set of applicants, because then you're at least starting from that diverse basis, which will more likely result in a diverse workforce then.
Why would that fall into personnel policies? What you just said?
We weren't sure what else we could refer to it as. Applicant policies, application policies, hiring.
Yeah,
We
hiring
weren't sure
policies.
where it would show up.
Yeah, hiring policies and procedures, or surely that is something that there has to be.
They probably have it already.
Right, somewhere, there has to, or this has to have already been dealt with, because it seems awkward to say personnel policies, because that's like some policy manual that governs the personnel policies and procedures of those who have already been hired.
Establish
you're concerned about the
policies
policy.
to actively encourage diverse applicants for town positions?
Say it again?
Just establish policies instead of personnel policies?
Yes,
Practices.
that's.
Or policies and
It's
practices?
not policies, we have the policies to make it actually happen. This is what, like school, they say, well, we have to try harder, like, really? But
So policies and practices,
So,
so a new 6C, 2C?
Thank you.
so this is really tricky. I strongly support what Mandy said. And I don't think it's appropriate to put in a charter anything like, and if the pools aren't diverse, the hiring can't proceed. But if the practice isn't that firm, and it's upsetting to people to say, we're not going forward with this hiring because we don't have a diverse enough pool. People don't like that, but that's the only way this works, but I don't think that's what you put in the charter. You know, they can't, obviously that's
Certainly can.
management, but the more we can encourage the importance of a diverse pool, the better, because you really can't. You have to hire on merit. It's a terrible thing to hire somebody who's less qualified because they're a person of color. It's terrible. So I don't know, I'm stuck because I don't know how you
Wait a
mandate.
minute, Nate, what's up? So, are you saying that all things are equal in hiring?
Well, if they're
Two-
equal.
Two candidates come up, all things are equal. Both of them are equal in the eyes of the search committee. But one happens to be a minority and one does not have to be. That you would hire the minority?
Well, I would. I'm not on the search committee, and I don't, people might not agree they're equal, but, you know, if you're trying to hire diverse staff, I don't know who those are, but if two people are actually literally equal, which two human beings never could be, then I would choose the person who brings more diversity to the team, whatever that meant. If it's a man, it might be a woman.
It certainly was that way when they were trying to increase the number of women in what had been previously all-male boards at the National Science Foundation, for example. I know that well.
So are we okay moving in that direction of having a 6.2C that says we will, the town shall establish policies and practices to actively encourage diverse applicants
Great.
for town positions?
And acquire applicants.
Or ditch in the list.
Or get some.
Or ditch in the list?
I don't know. I think
What
this
was
is
the last
really
part?
important.
Oh, ditching the list, I see.
Yes.
So that last sentence, all appointments and promotions, the last sentence of 2A
Gone.
is deleted.
Yes.
Okay. And
And the
we're
new
adding
C.
2.6.2C, the town shall establish policies and practices to actively encourage diverse applicants for town positions.
Yes.
And these other two comments, they're unrelated, never mind.
Yeah, those are,
You want to say a diverse pool of applicants? Does that sound better?
Cool.
yeah,
Yeah.
a diverse pool.
Diverse pool of applicants.
That sounds much better,
All
Dave.
right.
So much time in this stuff.
And this other change was already accepted,
Yeah.
right?
All the rest were accepted.
So,
These two, I guess there's, if we don't make the change, the termination needs to be plural, that, and the other one, we're deleting those comments?
Yes,
Okay.
because we made the change to promotions.
Yeah. So then,
So can we go look at 3.3C then?
What?
That's making appointments with the list.
Oh, we wanted to go back.
Yeah.
Well,
Oh, you're right.
the list is problematic. It's,
Yep.
tell me your political beliefs and I'll tell you if you're,
Acceptable.
Yeah, I totally agree.
so where are we?
3.3C, second paragraph. And I don't have language to suggest, I'm just reading what we have now. As in making appointments, the town manager shall seek to identify individuals for appointment with relevant expertise, as well as diversity, including such categories as neighborhood residents, age, ethnic, national origin, citizenship, physical ability, and the list of words on last. I guess what we're weighing in there is the value of listing, you know, this bucket of factors for the
Does someone
sort
want
of
to change that?
flexibility of it just saying diversity.
This is the one that,
This is in the multiple member bodies.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Tom.
No,
So-
I feel it's good having it in there because this is appointments to committees in town.
Lauren was okay with
I,
We just changed it to her language.
We did,
so
right?
it's a little bit different because we're talking about neighborhoods.
This is citizen committee, so you want them to
Yeah.
represent the citizenry.
Yeah.
And it's,
I guess I don't have as much of a concern with this section as I did
No.
with the
It's not as legal and
hiring
employment
section.
and, you know, liability and
Yeah.
I think this
pay
is
and all
fine
that
as it
stuff.
stands. I wouldn't change
I'm
anything.
okay with it.
Seek is a little bit of a weird word.
Well, it's now
So
seek to appoint.
Is that what?
Or seek to recruit.
That's not what
I mean,
this
I don't
says.
know.
What do you?
No,
Yeah.
so we
This
just,
is-
we
changed
revised it
to,
earlier in this meeting so that it now reads, in making appointments, the town manager shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise and who are reflective of the community with respect to neighborhood of residence, age, blah, 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 blah.
Okay,
That's
but I,
fine.
this,
Yeah.
the pieces of this list that trouble me is who knows what our community is? Because now we're reflecting our community. Who's done the religion survey? Who's done the sexual orientation survey? Who's done the gender?
Yeah.
What is this? So now
So we
we've
should-
created
We
the
could-
change we
Should we say
made
that
last makes this now a requirement that the town manager know our town like nobody does in order to reflect it against
Well,
these
Should we say
categories.
reflective of the diversity of our community?
And what does reflective mean? Does it mean percentages
I
based on
think it
what if
does.
they're the same person with
I
all
think if you
these
put it in a charter, it sounds like
Yeah.
a percentage.
What if we
Yeah.
change it to, in making appointments, the town manager shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise and shall establish policy or establish policies and practices to actively encourage a pool of diverse applicants. Or something like that.
Similar to what we just did.
So how
Similar to what
about
we
more
just
like
did.
just encourage? More, if you're putting a shall in here,
I
I
mean-
mean, that's something that's impossible to do.
The encourage is already in the community participation officer in some sense. Because that's where we're increased participation in local government by diverse residents. I mean, it's already in there.
Right?
The thing that, I'm elected to say this because we're trying to get this done, but the diversity that seems most relevant to me is that people be appointed to committees who represent the opinions on that subject that the committee addresses that reflect the town, so that you're not getting all people in the same position.
How could you possibly know what the town thinks?
Well, you know, because people are coming to the meetings and unhappy.
That's what people coming to the meetings think.
Well, what I'm trying to get at is people not being
I'm
appointed.
just,
because
I get what you're saying, I'm just saying the mechanism of trying to assign to the town manager the job of knowing how many people in the town feel this way
I agree totally
versus
with
how
you
many
about
people
that.
show up and complain.
No, I agree.
I don't-
Well,
Why not like just a more general thing, town manager shall make best efforts
yeah.
to,
To a point.
yeah.
I'd be okay with that. We could end it after with relevant expertise and then a new sentence that follows that
Let's do a new
mirrors
sentence.
exactly what we just did in 6(3). The town manager shall establish, or the town shall establish policies and practices to actively encourage a diverse pool of applicants for multiple member bodies
Yeah,
as a second sentence,
Yeah.
and then leave it
Let's
at
do
that.
I like it better.
yeah, I do too.
So copy that sentence and.
You got all that, Mike?
So, I'm gonna piece it together
Actually less,
here.
yeah.
We're at 6. Actually, wait, sorry, as I was on 62C, it says the town shall, but should it be the town manager shall?
I think in
Establish.
6(2)C, we
Just-
want town because we don't know who's doing it.
Okay.
But we could
That's
have,
true, it is, yeah.
do we want it town or town manager in 3
How about
with
the
the
town?
The
appointments?
previous paragraphs, all about the town manager doing the appointing.
I thought it was 3C, no?
Oh, there's a residents advisory committee, so we could task the residents advisory committee with it.
Let's just leave it to the town manager, and he can have them help him if he wants.
So that's just a second sentence.
Were we changing the beginning of the first sentence as well to read,
In making appointments, the town manager shall
seek to or best
Make a-
efforts?
Shall make best efforts.
Make best efforts to appoint individuals with relevant expertise.
Well, shouldn't they seek to appoint individuals with relevant expertise as long as we're adding this other sentence? I mean, I think they want expertise.
Yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
That's
Is seek
good.
okay?
Yeah.
Yeah,
seek
So-
should be
so
okay.
it is still seek.
The town manager shall seek to appoint individuals with relevant experience.
Expertise.
Can we say
sorry.
both work? Because expertise can be exclusive.
Expertise or experience.
Yeah, sure.
And experience, because some people have experience, I don't know, it just seems like
Yep,
it's a
good
little
point.
bit broader.
Yep. And then we copied 6.2C,
It's not, we're not talking master's degree
No, we're
necessarily.
yeah, and then changing it to,
Manager.
are we?
The town manager shall establish policies and practices to actively encourage a diverse pool of applicants for town position or
For multiple member bodies. Yeah. Two more. Almost there.
Okay, so number 5, this is section 8.3D and 8.4A.
Should stay registered voters.
We have registered voters.
Right.
Just say those numbers again, sorry.
So,
8.3D
8.3.
and 8.4A.
and there's also the Gs in both, the 20% turnout.
Anyway,
Right.
there's no way.
8.3D and 8.4A.
Yeah.
Yeah, 8.3D, 8.4A.
Now, we now have a number for the registered voters of 21,273. Do we have a number for the number of inactive voters?
Yes.
Active was 11,564, inactive is 9,706. That's this year. Last year, I think it was higher number of active voters. So,
Because
9,700 inactive voters?
Yes.
yeah, 11,000.
11,500 active. So 5% of active is 579, 5% of registered is 1,064.
5% of registered.
Did you say it was inactive is 11,000?
Active is 11,564. Inactive is 9,706. Total registered is 21,270.
And a active voter is someone who has voted in the past, how many years?
There's 4 categories for it. I don't know that I can pull it up.
4
right.
categories?
It's if you've responded to the census, if you've voted recently. But the proportion of active and inactive voters fluctuates quite a bit.
Yeah,
It was about 16,000 active voters last year when we had to calculate the number of active voters for the school referendum. And now it's 11,000.
So
Why does it
5,000 got
fluctuate so much?
dropped.
Presidential election.
Presidential elections, things like
Yeah,
that. So,
that makes
so
it
if we're
easy
basing
for
it on active voters, we're basing it on a fluctuating and smaller number. Whereas if we base it on registered voters, we're basing it on a fairly constant and larger number. So my proposal or my sense is we should leave it at registered voters, which is what we have. But we just wanted to.
Is there any one of the things we shouldn't have registered, be registered voters?
I just have a question.
Yes, Jerry.
What is a registered, what's the definition of a registered voter?
Somebody
have
who's
it.
registered.
anybody on the poll,
I
on
think
the
we have it,
list.
how many voters are registered voters?
It's a list from the
As
state.
of, so if you register in 1960,
You fall off at the
Current
time.
registered voters.
well, what makes it current?
Well,
That's
they
my question.
go through that every so often and.
Every so often.
They have
Well,
the
I
town,
don't
they have
know.
the town census, and if you don't show up on the town census, they knock you off after a while.
Okay.
Or if you've registered in another state, that state might notify and
cancels
then
you.
pull you off of the states and all.
So there are some
There's
registered
procedures to
voters that
keep that
you probably don't
accurate.
have here.
So the number of
But not
registered
a lot.
voters is more constant than the number of active voters.
Yes.
But inaccurate, because some of them may be moved.
Active voters are those who have taken some action to remain on the active voter list, which may have been voting, responding to the annual town census or confirmation card, signing a petition, or swearing by signing their name that they currently reside at their Amherst address. Inactive voters are still able to vote. But registered voters is the total of the two.
Okay.
So shall we leave it at registered?
Yes,
Yes.
and
Yeah, that's kind of how it works.
So, I mean, I, essentially disagree with a lot of what you said in the report, but I don't really feel like that's the place for me to be making corrections.
Yeah.
The only, and I sent
You-
a couple
you
to you
sent
and
me
you
a couple
changed
and
them.
I did
Thank
change
you,
them.
appreciate
Yep,
that,
yep.
The only thing I saw that was just more of a factual thing was on the bottom of page 14, where it says, do we risk confusion about town council versus town manager roles? And you say, as mentioned earlier, the council manager model is a very common form of government in Massachusetts and across the country. It's actually not a very common form of government in Massachusetts. It is across the country, but not in Massachusetts. Like, there are only, 10 or 11, so. Just factually, that was the only thing I felt was a little.
Yeah.
Yep. That's a good catch.
Government across the country.
What
I
do
mean, if
we-
you take out.
How are we
It's
rewording
actually
that?
quite
So
a
just the
minority.
common
of
form of
Right.
government across the country.
It's very rare in Massachusetts, but very common across the country.
We're like the rest of the country. We're going to be.
Wouldn't you rather be like Massachusetts than the rest of the country?
So,
Okay,
Am I capturing those changes or am I?
Andy's got
Where's
it.
your house, where's your house power? United States or United States?
Oh.
It's just in the Midwest.
AKA red.
all right,
No,
the ones that
Pennsylvania.
were blue and now are
The town
red.
manager ones are more blue. I mean, the town meeting states are more
Yeah.
blue.
All right,
That's
so
probably true, actually.
any other changes to this before we go to the vote? Okay, so we have 3 votes. There's the vote on the charter, there's a vote then to send, no, the vote to approve the charter report.
The vote on the
Including-
charter and the report, we could do those together. The vote
Well-
to forward to the select board, and then allow.
Last time we did them separately
We did them
because people
separate,
wanted to
yeah.
vote on the charter, and then they voted to send, on the report, and it may be the same vote, but I don't know. So we'll do 3 votes.
Four.
First one, what are they?
The other one's Scrivener errors.
Oh, yeah. So vote on the charter report, vote to submit the charter and report to select board, and vote to allow me and Mandy to correct any Scrivener's errors. All right? So,
Make a motion?
sure.
I move to adopt the final home rule charter as amended tonight as, at the charter as amended tonight as our final home rule charter.
second.
Any comments? Or do people want to, do we want to go around and make comments, or do we sort of figure we did that last time and just sort of vote?
Let's just vote. Let's just vote.
Can we do a roll call?
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. I mean, if anybody has any comment before we vote, they can make it
I
now.
have comments.
I'd like to make a comment, just for the record.
Me too, but I'll have to.
Excuse me, don't we have a period after the vote when we have comments? That's on the agenda, I believe.
It's not public comments, it's part of the discussion, I guess, right?
What it says on the agenda?
We have final comments by members of the public, but if people want to speak about their vote, they can. So, anybody who wants to speak on the vote, nay.
I would like to.
Jerry?
Okay. I, of course, am going to vote no tonight. And I also want to say, dear colleagues, I appreciate my 18 months with you all. I'm glad it's over. But for the record, I want to say that my no vote is guided by my belief that the purest form of democracy enables citizens to directly determine the laws they will live under. That pure form would, of course, be open town meeting. And next in line would be representative town meeting. I believe there's a common misperception held by members of this commission, majority, and by certain people in town, that representative town meeting is not representation because of the size of the body and thus the number of people serving per precinct makes it non-representative. Representative town meeting is, as the Secretary of State of Massachusetts names it, a limited town meeting. By having a large body of people who are willing to put in the time to participate in such a government, we have the closest approximation of governing by the people. There are many people who feel our representative town meeting isn't working because of the school votes last year. And while I was also very upset by that vote, I don't believe the problem was misrepresentation or underrepresentation or non-representation. In fact, the votes clearly indicated how aligned town meeting is with the population at large, as the vote in town meeting was extremely overlapping with the townwide vote. I believe the problem was an interpretation of what town meeting's job was that night, and I disagree with how it came out. But I would no sooner throw away an institution that I believe deeply in because of perceived error than I would throw away a friendship. A close friend over such an event of a perceived error. I continue to believe that 240 stands a much greater chance of having in its numbers many people who match my values and my wishes on any given night, and I don't have that confidence in a body of 13. It's been argued here that town meeting is not diverse. Not diverse enough, I would agree, but I can't imagine a galaxy in which a body of 13 will be more diverse than a body of 240. Especially in elections requiring money to run, as the council elections will likely be in Amherst if this passes. Town meeting participants need no money to get elected. We only need look at our charter commission here tonight. 90% white, 100% middle-class homeowner composition. No, 90% homeowner. 90% homeowner.
Sorry.
Thank you for that correction. To see what happens in a high-stakes election. Finally, I can't vote for this proposed government that will put nearly full power in the hands of those 13 people elected with the use of money and influence. There will be very few checks and balances in the day-to-day votes. Only the oft-quoted, "We can throw the bums out if we don't like their votes." Yep, 2 years later, we can throw the bums out. Maybe. And in 2 years, 9 people can forever change the character of this town by changing our zoning laws that have protected our neighborhoods for years. By the time the effects of those votes are felt, it will be far too late to throw the bums out. Thank you all for all your work tonight. But I will vote no.
Sorry for interrupting.
I appreciate your correction.
So, I'm trying to say newer things than I said last time. I cannot support or recommend this proposed charter. While we all recognize that all paths have pros and cons, and I think we've weighed a lot of things and nothing's like that, it's all sort of like that. I'm not confident that we have any data to support the benefit of such a drastic change to a severely contracted legislative executive system. Where's the data to show that when cities and towns move from a manager town meeting form of government to a manager council form, voter turnout will increase, elections will become more competitive, or voters will have better access to their fewer representatives and better knowledge of what those representatives stand for? We have a select board of 5 right now, and most people in Amherst can't name more than 1 or 2 members of the select board. And I can guarantee you that 95% of the voters in Amherst have no idea what their political positions are, what they stand for, those members of the select board. After reflecting on our current government and trying to imagine the proposed one, I'm convinced that the plan and the charter would greatly decrease participation in government and would not provide Amherst with clear, accountable leadership. By erasing the select board and town meeting, all the executive and legislative power would be concentrated in the hands of 13 council members. The loss of town meeting, an institution that provides access to government for residents in a way that a 13-person council can never allow, is ideal for townwide deliberation and for community involvement. This cannot be replicated at the ballot box when instead of voting for 24 neighbors in your precinct, voting will be limited to choosing 2 district councilors, neither of whom may come from your precinct, and 13 at-large councilors who are also unlikely to come from your precinct. Three. How could such few people possibly reflect the diversity of background and opinion that 24 people from my neighborhood, in addition to 24 people from 9 other precincts, bring to critical townwide discussions? One simple example of the greater diversity in town meeting is that over 55% of Amherst town meeting members are female. Compare that with the other cities in Massachusetts with manager council forms of government where only 26% are female. That's in addition to the fact that only 10% of the town managers in these communities are female. Take a look at council members in these manager council communities and see What are the percentage of homeowners, middle-income residents, low-income residents, for residents for whom English is not a first language? I think you will start to value how diverse and reflective of our community town meeting is. Just as significantly, the select board would be erased along with town meeting, creating one executive legislative body who would supervise the town manager. The blurring of lines between the unelected executive, who is sort of the town manager, but remember the council hires and supervises him, most likely him, and our legislative body is bizarre and confusing. It does not provide for clear leadership, accountability, or checks and balances that come with having clear executive and legislative branches as we have now. And in addition, the town manager would be supervised by 13 people, a task which our 5-member select board repeatedly told us was difficult to do with just 5 people. I do wish we had had the time and the votes on this commission to develop a form of government that maintained town meeting by studying in-depth best practices in other towns with effective town meetings. But I realize that in order to do that, we had to have had a majority of the commissioners willing to undertake that project, and we did not. In spite of having over 60 meetings, we literally ran out of time to tackle important projects like ranked choice voting, sort of, and moving elections to November of even years, a move which dramatically would have increased voter turnout. That being said, it's, again, I have to appreciate our chair, Andy, who has not tried to strong arm our process all the way through the end and has given us a lot of leeway to stray far and wide in our discussions. It's impressive to have that flexibility, especially during difficult debates, and at the same time actually get a charter drafted, which I think we will. So thank you for your patience, and all of you for your all your perspectives on many things and all the nuances. I think we've all learned a lot through this process, and I'm hoping that Amherst residents will also learn a lot over the next however many months leading to a vote on this charter that has been by an informed electorate and with a high turnout.
First, thank you to the other 12, not 8. We've got 9. 8. It's been a pleasure serving with everyone. And it was way more work than I could have ever guessed, and I think all of us would say that.
Especially you.
So,
Especially you.
thank you, but it's no surprise that my vote will be a yes. And again, I'll try to keep it slightly different than the last one too, so I don't repeat myself. But I do have to start with, we started this process and a number of people said Amherst is unique, and kept saying Amherst is unique, and I didn't necessarily believe it. But after all of going through this and seeing all of the data the Collins Center provided us, we are unique in a number of ways. We have that small town feel, but we host a flagship university that really does sometimes dominate this town. That combination together, which we really could not, for the size of our total population, actually find an equivalent for in the entire nation. It's the uniqueness. Needs a government that can handle it and handle that uniqueness. And unfortunately, I do not believe town meeting in either its open or representative form nowadays can do that. We need a government that can be timely, that can be deliberative, and that can keep the professionalism in it. Towns evolve. When Amherst adopted representative town meeting in 1936, it had a population of approximately 6,100 people. It is now a population of 37, almost 38,000, if not closer to 39,000, 6 times as high. When it changed to, in 1951, 240 representative town meeting. Before that, it was 1 per every 20 registered voters. When it went to 240 representatives and members of a representative town meeting, it had a population of approximately 10,900. Again, we've tripled our population since that time. As we've evolved, we need a government that also evolves and that can handle that essentially dramatic increase in our population. We need a government that works for everyone. And as I said last time, what really struck me in hearing all of the comments, over 400 written comments, over, I can't tell you how many people at live meetings. The people that had been members of town meeting liked town meeting, but those that had never, well, no, but yeah, people that had been members of town meeting, some liked town meeting, some did not. But those who had never served in town meeting, by and large, and it was not universal, it was not 100%, but by and large, a large majority of them kept telling us town meeting does not work for them. Town meeting does not work for them. Town meeting, yes, may work wonderfully for the 252 people that can serve on it, but it cannot work and does not work for those that cannot put in 40 hours of meetings a year to show up and vote and sit there. And we need a government that can work for those that can't put that 40 hours a year into showing up at meetings. And so, while it's sad to vote against town meeting and representative town meeting, our town's evolved. We need our government to evolve. We need a government that can work for everyone, and I believe the charter that we are sending forth to the select board tonight will do that.
Thank you. So you're voting yes?
I will be voting yes.
Okay. I will be voting yes too.
You could have surprised us big time.
Yeah. Yeah, come on. You know, there will be plenty of talk, you know, in the next 6 months about the pros and cons of this, and you know, I think along with Tom and Nick and Irv, I've sort of laid out a lot of how I feel in this report that you all have, but I guess I would quote a little bit of it. In terms of the concern that we're somehow moving from a bottom-up to a top-down power structure, I don't think we have a bottom-up power structure now. We have a disjointed and somewhat hidden power structure where citizen decision-making is divided between a select board and a town meeting, and where members of the legislative body are not bound by open meeting and conflict of interest laws. Too many discussions of key issues take place out of the public eye, including in private email groups set up by town meeting factions. We have a town meeting that is understood by those in it, but that is a black box for many other residents outside it, who are frustrated that their government is too time-consuming for them to participate in, but too unaccountable for them to influence. This proposal updates our system to be more responsive, more accountable, and more effective. It expands the base of our power structure by making that power accessible by all the voters. It offers a full range of opportunities for participation, including voting, public forums, district meetings, citizen committees, citizen initiatives, and elected service. By restoring the key democratic relationship between the people and their representatives, it empowers the voters and enables an ongoing conversation among all of us about what we want Amherst to be. So I look forward to the conversation over the next few months, and, well, not really, but I look forward to the end of this part, and I do want to thank all of you, and I'll probably thank you again when we get to the final comments. But I vote yes.
Are we voting now, or?
Yes, we're voting and
Okay.
speechifying and everything.
It's simultaneous, voting and speechifying. I vote yes. I did not prepare remarks, largely because I felt like we presented our clear statements in the final report. So I won't belabor that, just to thank you. I think what we did was more or less clear-eyed, open-minded consideration of what are legitimately trade-offs, risks, and opportunities. And I think we did a really solid job of weighing them, and I appreciate your collegiality, and I don't regret running for this and signing up for it. All right.
Okay, I'm unique amongst the 9 people because I'm not voting yes and I'm not voting no. But before I read my statement, which in fact will be published after the charter, because I was allowed some space to explain my vote there. I do want to thank everybody on the charter, Mike Ward as well. I have I don't know if enjoyed was the right word, serving with you, and I don't think any of us, when we signed on to this, had any idea how much work it was going to be, but I certainly do value you all, and as I said last time, Andy and Mandy, you herded cats at times, but you did a good job and never lost your cool with us, which is saying a lot. Okay, so I will read my statement. No vote I can remember has caused me more grief than this one. This statement attempts to explain where I am at and why. There is no question that I was voted on to the commission by strong advocates of town meeting because they knew that I loved town meeting and its form of direct democracy. For the whole first year of serving on the commission, from April 2016 to April 2017, my votes were unwaveringly in favor of improving town meeting rather than creating a city form of government. But my votes were always among the minority. What happened to change my thinking? I heard from some supporters of town meeting I know well and respect that the charter would certainly pass regardless of the details. I heard that opinion repeated at our listening sessions from some angry residents. What if they were right? If there were going to be a new charter, shouldn't I help shape it for the best? And I did. My top two priorities for town government when I ran were 1, a well-trained professional hired on credentials to lead our town, and 2, easy ways for citizens to petition for changes in the government. But I also wanted there to be maximum democratic participation by the greatest number of residents, not just advisory participation, but with real decision-making authority. Those were the goals for the charter that guided my votes. I supported a larger town council rather than a small one. I urged that there be some elected rather than only appointed persons for key committees. But the most important objective I had for our town was that of a well-trained professional town manager. I pushed hard for that, it passed, and I am glad it is in the charter, though I lost other battles. In summary, there are things I like about town meeting and things I don't. There are things I like about the charter and things I don't. I have promised not to oppose the new charter, and I will not. But I also won't oppose those who want town meeting to prevail. I hope people will understand how hard this has been for me and why I decided to abstain and not campaign for either side. The citizens of Amherst have a choice, and their decision is the one that matters. So I'm abstaining, if that wasn't clear.
Thank you. I would so a different kind of comment, which is, I'm voting no, as everyone must expect, no surprise. I regret we weren't able to reach consensus on a plan, but since we are irreconcilably divided on whether to eliminate or reform town meeting, there was no chance of that. I wish we could have, because I think there was another solution. I regret the proposed 60-person council that Nick and I negotiated was voted on before it had been fully considered or understood. In fact, before it was even written down. I feel the small but powerful executive committee of the larger council would have functioned efficiently, and the larger council would have enabled significantly more participation than the current 13-person council. The 60-person council proposal, which was totally misunderstood and never was, blasted before we even talked about some of the details of the proposal, drew an extraordinary negative response, but it was hurtful, frankly, and aggressive, but without understanding the details of the full proposal. And if that had won a majority of the commission, I would have been obligated to support it, since it was a real negotiation that Nick and I carried out. All that said, the most important thing in some ways, I appreciate each person, all and each person on the commission and how we carried out this process. Diana said she's given it our best. I think we've all given it our best. We've come to the meetings, all of us have done work outside, we've made phone calls, we've driven places. We've carried it out with dignity and honor, and we've been able to disagree, to give each other candid feedback, sometimes in anger. We've been upset with each other. We can correct each other and tolerate a certain level of rolled eyes, looks of, I can't believe you said that. Most of us have had meetings one-on-one outside the formal commission meetings with each other, many. I think Nick and I have had about 5.
At least.
To be sure we understood each other and to lobby one another on this or that. I wish others in this town might learn from how we managed our disagreement. Yes, we each were very unhappy from time to time and couldn't believe this or that happened or was said. But we all came back, continued to listen to each other and to move forward. We all tried to make the charter proposal the best it could be when we weren't able to support it in the end, even when we weren't able to support it in the end. I especially appreciate Mandy and Andy's leadership. Mandy has been amazing, almost too amazing, but not quite. Unbelievable. I don't know how we would have finished this without your many, many, many extra hours and extraordinary ability to pay attention to details, understand legal language, and think through, translate that into how will this actually work. Have we thought of everything? And tonight was an example. I mean, we're sitting here going, oh man, I can't believe it, but it was important. Andy has led the commission with openness and patience, always willing to give any of us a chance to share our concerns and questions, even when it extended our meetings and complicated our process. I'm sure he was urged by his supporters to have more of an iron hand, and I'm grateful that he didn't. Oh, good. And I guess I want to also appreciate Kevin, who's provided an extraordinary public service by coming to all the meetings and standing quietly there. The emails that we get, I know has had plenty of things you have said. Hope you didn't get too many ulcers, but I think we all appreciate it. Thank you. I can't say I'm sorry it's over, but whenever I come back to our clubhouse here in the police station, I'll remember the many, and I do mean many, hours we all spent here bringing our best selves to figure out what is best for Amherst. I don't like where we ended up, but I'm grateful for the respect and kindness of people who don't agree.
I'm not going to talk about why I'm supporting this charter. My feelings are well expressed in the final report. Instead, I have a different kind of statement. Serving on the Charter Commission has been one of the most challenging commitments in my life. After 3 decades of writing about Amherst town government in the newspaper and announcing publicly upon retirement that I would no longer be involved in it, I was a reluctant candidate for this commission. After being elected, I had to adjust to participating in meetings instead of sitting silently and observing them. I threw myself into the effort. I did extensive research on forms of government, and I wrote extensive minutes for the first half of our meetings. I had over 70 private meetings with commission members, experts in town government, and regular citizens, including 20 with town meeting supporters. There have been some rough patches. I was unjustly accused of being a pawn of developers. I took some heat for trying to negotiate a compromise. I've strained some long-standing friendships. And I've been on the losing side of 5 important votes. But I still support this charter because I believe it will provide for a government that will more closely reflect the wishes of the majority of Amherst residents. It will keep what's best about Amherst and improve parts that haven't worked so well. And I will work strenuously for its passage. 10 days ago, I met with Meg Gage, whom I've known for 30+ years. Our relationship became strained last month after she voted no on the preliminary report. But when we got together, we agreed to disagree and still remain friends. I hope to achieve a similar reconciliation with the other members of the minority. I encourage Amherst voters to resist the temptation to make up their minds quickly about this charter. For most of us, there are things we like and things we don't like. Take time to read the majority and minority reports, if not the charter itself. Don't lock yourself into voting one way or another based on something you've heard. This is not a decision that lends itself to an easy, conventional liberal versus conservative analysis. And I hope that we can have a rational and fact-based debate about this charter over the next 6 months. I hope we can minimize divisiveness and set a standard for respectful disagreement with those who feel differently from us. I hope we can stay away from ad hominem arguments, speculation about motives, and exaggeration of our opponent's beliefs. I'd like to thank all the commission members. I'd like to thank our consultants, Mike and Tanya, and especially Amherst voters for giving me an opportunity to engage in this fascinating exercise.
This has been a difficult journey for me in a lot of ways. A lot of you may not know that I'm a consultant and I deal with entrepreneurs across the country. I really literally am steeped in spreadsheets, financial projections all the time, making judgments based upon the merit of the finances and the executive team. Those are very clear-cut kinds of decisions one can make. This is not. This is one where a lot of subjectivity comes into it. A lot of the objectivity is brought only in certain instances. But one of the things that's been impressive to me is that out of the 9 members of this commission, 7 of us were or are town meeting members. Out of the 5 who were voted in majority, 3 of us are town meeting members. We didn't come here not knowing about town meeting. This is something that we were steeped in. One way or another, we arrived at the conclusion that town meeting had served its purpose and needed to be moved to another part of history, and that Amherst needed to move on. I do not share the concerns of some that money, big money, will enter into the political landscape here because you're now reducing from 240 down to 13. The same amount of money that has been involved, in my mind, the same amount of money that has been involved in politics will be the same. When you have 3 members who have to run town-wide, the council members, they will probably spend the most money. But the remaining ones are only spending money within their districts, not the entire town. And for someone to say, well, big money will influence those 10 people who are in different districts, that's a big stretch to me, huge stretch. I do not subscribe to that notion that that's going to have any effect at all. I really, really believe that this document represents not only the best of us here in this room, but the best in terms of Amherst. I look forward to the upcoming months in terms of the discussions that are going to go on and the back and forth that will happen and the campaigning on both sides, because that's what this is all about. It involves the choice. And this will give Amherst a choice, and why not have this choice out there rather than coming here and spending 18 months trying to improve something that everyone already has said doesn't work, or that wanted to be changed. You know, we have voted to make a change, and now it's time for Amherst to do that, to do their part, and I look forward to that. I also really have enjoyed and appreciated the work of the Collins Center. Very professional and very, very timely in their comments. They just a professional group. Andy and Mandy, God knows how we got that group together and that they rhyme. But it happened, and you guys did a remarkably great job. Great, I mean, fantastic job. And Mandy, I certainly appreciate you, and I'm glad you're not on my clock to have to pay you as an attorney. That is for sure. But it's been a pleasure working with all of you. A really, really great pleasure, and probably one of the great honors of my life. And I thank you very much.
Okay, so the vote, thank you all for your comments, and the vote is 5 in favor, 3 against, and 1 abstain. So we've retained our preliminary results. So that vote is done. We now need to vote on the charter report itself.
Can I ask one question about the charter report? Or, I don't know if it was the charter report, but it had stars next to the town people or town meeting members or former.
Who has been?
Yeah, is there a reason for doing that?
It was just suggested that we make that clear, that who had been on town meeting.
Because we didn't make stars, who had been on select board. I'm just gonna be a little annoying for a second, I only have a few more minutes. Like who had been on select board, or who had been on the school committee.
Well, I think it's relevant because the charter is recommending the elimination of town meeting, and we do not want it to appear as if the Charter Commission was largely a group that is not connected to town meeting. In fact, we have a strong majority of town meeting or former town meeting members on the commission. I think it's relevant.
Well, then why wouldn't we put, we're also recommending getting rid of the select board, so why wouldn't we put former select board members in? I mean,
Well,
what's the difference? I mean, I guess I don't see.
You want to propose that? I'll vote for it.
Yeah, I think we should do that.
Sure.
Do we, I'm trying to understand how that's, how much we want to put in. I mean, we could say how many people have been on select board, how many people have been on school
Well,
committee.
you star people, right, just at the bottom of the report.
Right before the votes. I mean, it would get unwieldy if we started identifying everyone.
Right,
How about the school committee too?
but we're not changing
Or
school committee,
other-
we're changing town meeting and
Well, we are
select
changing
board.
school committee, the terms. You know, there's a lot of stuff we're changing, so. I would vote to leave it the way it is.
Yeah, I don't particularly care. I think it's useful information, but
I mean, it's sort of
I'm okay
advocacy.
leaving it off too, but.
I mean, it's sort of advocacy information in a section of just like how they voted, which is factual.
Well, people can decide, I'm not sure what it's advocating. I mean,
Well, just what Nick said.
there's similar numbers of people who were on town meeting who voted yes and people on town meeting who voted no, right?
This is the way it appears on the website.
Okay,
Did you have an objection to that?
well, now that you pointed it out, yeah.
It's been there for a
But you
while.
haven't had any objection up to this point.
Well, I mean, I think, I would just say, like, I don't understand the difference between
Let's just-
select board and town meeting members. Like, if we're,
Julie, would you,
just be clear.
could you just articulate your reasons for wanting to change this to town?
I think it is trying to point out something that like, hey, look, we're getting rid of town, I mean, just what Nick just said. But from the flip side, we're getting rid of town meeting and we all have been significantly involved in town meeting, so it gives it more legitimacy.
Isn't that relevant for voters to know?
It is a final report of the majority as to
I-
why we're supporting that, so I think it's relevant to know, and it is allowed to be advocacy.
I guess, I didn't see this section as advocacy, it looked just like who voted for what.
It is the full report.
I think that Julia makes sense. Just that line where it says, members of the commission and how they voted should say, members of the commission and how they voted. Rather than add in additional information, because it is making a point. It is the report of the final commission, so we made plenty of points all through it that are arguments, but it seems like that one spot
Yeah.
just be a clean record of the vote.
I'll go, Tom.
And to support that.
Yeah, I don't particularly care.
All right, so that's easy to change.
Yeah. Take it out.
Are we okay with that?
Take it out.
You're not gonna argue with it, I'm okay with it, you're okay with it. So we'll have just the votes and the members of the Charter Commission and how they voted as it is titled. All right. So I guess I better remember to do that. So,
May I make my motion?
Yeah.
I move to adopt the minutes as the Charter Commission final report, the report that was presented tonight with amendments made, and just to be clear, that does include the statement of our one abstaining member.
Yes.
Vote to adopt.
So
what is,
move, do we have a second?
Second?
what is this called, Andy?
This is called the final report,
So-
This is
right?
the final report.
Yeah, so just, are we voting that it has to be in, or are we voting to say we agree with what's the content?
And that was kind of a weird vote.
No,
Can we just abstain?
This is essentially the content and supporting the final.
Content, yeah.
There'll be a third vote to send it to the select board.
Okay, so this is the content of the
Yeah.
report as
And-
opposed to the charter.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I just wanted to make clear that Diana's statement will be part of this final report content, which then allows the minority statement to continue to have up to 1,000 words.
Got it.
Thank you.
Could I say a word?
Sure.
In favor of that? I'm very grateful to the fact that I was allowed to have a publication that explained my abstaining vote. There were people out there who wanted to know why I abstained, and I very much appreciate the fact that I was given space at the end of the chart, at the end of the report, to have my statement included.
Yeah, I think that it.
So I obviously am going to vote in favor of it.
Okay. I think that it will give a clearer picture of the full committee, that will have, that in there as well. So, I guess, any other comments, or all in favor? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All opposed? 2 abstaining?
I'm abstaining because I can't quite understand.
Okay. So the report.
I don't know why I'm abstaining though, I mean, I guess I should. This is
Because you're
a-
taking minutes.
I'm so busy writing all this stuff, I haven't had time to think about it.
So 6-2-1 or 6-3? Or 6, what, are you abstaining or are you opposed?
I guess I'll vote no.
6-3.
6, no, it's 6, it's,
Wait a minute, yeah,
Yeah, 6:30.
6-3.
6-3.
that's correct.
6-3.
And then can I have a motion to submit the charter and the report to the select board?
I move to submit the final report, the final home rule charter, and the minority statement that is to be received within 48 hours of our 9:37 PM vote to the select board in accordance with the law that we operated under.
I didn't get who, who, did you move on all these?
Yes,
Yes.
Who seconded, just,
Jerry.
sorry, okay.
Jerry just
I
did.
second this one.
Okay, Wendy,
All in favor?
I'm in favor of that.
Unanimous.
And one more. I move to allow Andy and Mandy, one last time the rhyming, to make edits to the final report, the charter, and where it comes, the minority report that are Scrivener or copy edit or consistency edits to make sure it's all in the same font and stuff like that, since it may not match. And before, yeah, before we send it off to the select board.
Any comments?
Seconded, you seconded it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, for the 9-0. All right, as far as other planning, I don't know that we need to do any. We will We will await the minority report. Please send it to me within 48 hours. I will attach it to the report, and that will be the front part, and then the charter will follow that. I will send it to all of you and to the select board by Friday, probably sooner.
The select board is Thursday. Needs to go to the select board Thursday.
What?
That's the deadline.
All right.
At least in my calendar it is.
Well, whenever Mandy tells me to send it to the select board, I will do so.
Approve these minutes.
Anything that we need to be thinking of as far as that? I mean, we basically just have to send it to the select board and it's in their hands at that point, right? Do we need to also send it to the state at the same time?
DHCD and AG.
Yeah, so
Yeah. And we have their emails, so.
we can do it that way. Okay. We will eventually, we continue to exist until 1 month after the election. So as a commission, we exist so if there's any mopping up business to be done, any bills to be paid or whatever, that we can do that. We will at some point need to meet to approve the minutes from this meeting. So we'll see you again together. Any other planning stuff that I'm not thinking about?
Anybody want to go out and get wings with Mike?
We
heard about you, Mike.
We should see if Mike wants to go out.
Yeah, it's early enough, we've
Well, I would like to add a little token of, as everybody said, you know, this is a good group, and I think we spent a lot of time together, and I think we didn't always agree, but I think we all contributed to what we came up with, and so I think we can all feel proud about it, and I think we can all feel happy that we're done. And I wanted to give a couple little tokens of my appreciation to everybody here on the commission. These are little presents for you, and I also made a little souvenir for everybody who was part of this.
I survived the charter.
I think Mike and Tanya should get one too.
Oh, yeah.
I have one for Mike and Tanya, and I have one for Kevin. And so, yes. So, you know, I don't know that I'll wear this, but I will certainly remember
You have one more down
what we
here.
went through together.
That is a riot.
It was,
Yeah.
I'm gonna wear that tomorrow. They have heard about you guys, and now they're gonna know I survived. Oh, I love it.
you can get these things at Michael's, and then you just have to cut little circles with a pair of scissors, so.
You did that?
Anyway, yeah. So, anyway, I thank you again for your service and for being such a great group to work with. I think it really was one of the toughest assignments I think any of us has ever had, and I think we performed it as gracefully as we could be expected to, and as thoughtfully. And I look forward to seeing all of you in social situations as well as political ones, and thank you.
How about a hand for Andy and Andy?
I too want to thank the Collins Center. You guys were definitely the right pick, and you have supported us above and beyond your contractual arrangements. I think this is probably the worst contract you ever signed. Hopefully you got some good stories out of it, and that
It's
you
not
can,
the worst one.
you can,
Whoa.
you could certainly, we certainly, we really appreciate your support.
Yes.
And I would also like to thank Mandy, the vice chair. I mean, she, I don't know what we would have done without her. I just think she contributed so much to this effort.
had sugar.
The charter would have been one page. Yes, I think we've all expressed, I don't think we can express the debt we owe to you in terms of what you've contributed. So, thank you all. I think we're basically, our work is done, and now we send it off into the community, and whatever we think of it, I think it was a good piece of work, and there's a lot of all of us in it. So thank you all, and I guess I'll take a motion to adjourn.
I
So moved.
I'll
All in
second.
favor? Aye. We're out.